A single father opens his door at midnight to find his missing wife's sister and the truth that will destroy everything he thought he knew about the woman he loved. If you've ever believed a lie that saved you from a harder truth, if you've ever rebuilt your life only to have the foundation crack beneath you, then this story will reach into your chest and remind you why some doors should never be opened. Stay with me until the end. This is a story about love, loss, and the impossible choices we make for the people we can't let go. Before we begin, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The rain came down like accusations. Daniel Brooks stood at his kitchen sink at 11:43 p.m., hands submerged in dishwater that had gone cold 20 minutes ago, staring through the window at nothing. The rhythm of water against glass had become white noise, the kind that filled the silence of a house where a 4-year-old girl slept upstairs and a 32-year-old man tried not to remember what it felt like when this place held 3 people instead of 2. He'd been standing there longer than necessary. The dishes were done. Had been done. But moving meant walking past the living room where Mia's toys were scattered across the floor in the specific chaos only a child could create, meant climbing stairs that creaked in places he'd memorized, meant lying in a bed that still felt too large even after 3 years of sleeping in it alone. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Not that he was counting. The mug in his hand, Rachel's favorite, the one with the chipped handle she'd refused to throw away, slipped beneath the surface of the water. He watched it sink, watched his own hands move to retrieve it, wondered distantly why he still used it, why he still kept it, why he still did a lot of things that made no sense when you were supposed to be moving on. The knock came at 11:47 p.m. 3 sharp raps against the front door, urgent enough to cut through the rain and the fog of his thoughts. Daniel's hands froze. Nobody knocked at midnight. Nobody knocked at all, really. His world had narrowed to playdates and parent-teacher conferences, grocery store small talk, and the kind of casual acquaintances who asked how he was doing with that look in their eyes that said they didn't really want to know. The knock came again. Harder this time. Daniel dried his hands on a towel that had seen better days and moved through the darkened house with the careful quiet of a man who'd learned to navigate his own space without waking a light sleeper upstairs. His mind ran through possibilities. Neighbor with an emergency, wrong address, some drunk who'd stumbled up the wrong porch steps, the reasonable options, the normal ones. He didn't consider the impossible ones. Not until he opened the door and saw her standing there. Lena Carter was drowning in rain and something that looked like desperation. Her dark hair was plastered to her face, her clothes soaked through, and in her trembling hands she clutched a manila envelope that she held against her chest like it contained something precious or dangerous or both. She looked at Daniel with eyes that were Rachel's eyes, same deep brown, same shape, but carrying a weight Rachel's had never held. "Daniel!" His name came out fractured. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know where else to go." For 3 years, Daniel had wondered what he would say if he ever saw anyone from Rachel's family again. He'd rehearse speeches in his head, practice the cold courtesy he'd use, the door he'd close in their faces. They'd all known where Rachel went. They'd all kept quiet while he filed missing person reports and called hospitals and drove himself half crazy trying to understand why his wife had walked out of their lives like they were a book she'd grown bored of reading. But standing there looking at Lena, who he'd met exactly 4 times before Rachel disappeared, who'd been living in Seattle doing something with environmental law, who'd sent a card when Mia was born but hadn't attended the baby shower, all those rehearsed words evaporated. "You need to come inside," he heard himself say. Lena shook her head, water flying from the ends of her hair. "You're going to hate me. After you hear this, you're standing in a storm at midnight." Daniel's voice came out rougher than he intended. "Whatever you came here to say can be said inside." He stepped back, creating space in the doorway. After a moment's hesitation, Lena crossed the threshold into a house she'd never entered before. She stood in the entryway, dripping onto hardwood floors, still clutching that envelope, and Daniel saw her eyes move across the space, taking in the child's drawings taped to the refrigerator, the small pink sneakers by the door, the framed photo on the hall table of Daniel and Mia at the park, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. "She's beautiful," Lena whispered. She's asleep. Daniel closed the door against the rain and the night. And you're going to tell me why you're here. I need you to sit down. I'm fine standing. Daniel, please. Lena's voice cracked on his name. Please sit down. There was something in her face, some terrible knowledge living behind her eyes, that made Daniel's stomach drop. He'd felt this sensation before, the one that came right before your life changed. He'd felt it the day the doctor told him his father's cancer was terminal. He'd felt it the morning he woke up and realized Rachel's car was gone, her closet half empty, and no note left behind to explain the absence. He sat. Lena remained standing, shifting her weight from foot to foot, creating a small puddle on the floor. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Just say it, Daniel said. Whatever it is, just say it. Rachel's alive. The words hit him like a fist to the solar plexus. For a moment, Daniel couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at this woman who'd just spoken an impossible sentence into his living room at midnight. What? She's alive. She's been alive this whole time. Lena's hands shook harder against the envelope. And before you ask me anything else, before you say anything, you need to read what's in here. You need to know why. She held out the envelope. Daniel didn't take it, couldn't take it. His hands had gone numb. 3 years, he said, and his voice sounded like it was coming from somewhere far away. 3 years I thought she might be dead. 3 years I filed reports and called hospitals and answered Mia's questions about where her mother went with lies because I didn't have the truth. 3 years, and you're telling me you knew? I'm telling you she made me promise. Tears were running down Lena's face now, mixing with rainwater. I'm telling you she had reasons. Reasons? Daniel stood so fast the coffee table rattled. What possible reason justifies letting me think my wife was dead or kidnapped or lying in a ditch somewhere? What possible reason justifies letting Mia grow up without her mother? Cancer. The word fell into the room like a stone into still water. What? Daniel said again, because it was the only word his brain could form. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Lena's voice was hollow. Diagnosed 6 weeks before she left. Terminal. Inoperable. They gave her 6 months, maybe 8, with aggressive treatment. She didn't want you to watch her die. She didn't want Mia's last memories of her mother to be hospitals and chemo and wasting away, so she left. Daniel sat back down. Had to. His legs wouldn't hold him anymore. Lena knelt in front of him, still holding out the envelope. It's all in here. Medical records. Letters she wrote. Everything. She made me promise not to tell you, made me swear I'd let her do this her way. And I did. I kept that promise because she was my sister and she was dying, and I thought... Her voice broke. I thought I was doing the right thing. Daniel took the envelope with hands that didn't feel like his own. The manila paper was damp from rain and Lena's grip, bent at the corners from being held too tightly. He stared at it, this thing that supposedly contained the truth he'd been searching for, and couldn't make himself open it. If she's dying, he said slowly, if she left because she was dying, then why are you here now? Why not just let me keep thinking she abandoned us? Lena's face crumpled. Because she didn't die. The world tilted. The cancer went into remission. Against all odds, against everything the doctors said, she survived. And then 6 months ago it came back, different this time. Treatable, maybe, but the treatments are brutal and the odds aren't good, and she's... Lena pressed her palm against her mouth, shoulders shaking. She's asking to see you, both of you, before it's too late. Daniel stood again, but this time it was because he needed to move, needed to pace, needed to do something with the energy that was tearing through his body like electricity. She's asking? She's asking to see us? Daniel, she made a choice. His voice was rising and he couldn't stop it, didn't want to stop it. She made a choice to leave, to let us think she was gone, to rob Mia of her mother and me of... He couldn't finish that sentence, couldn't name what had been taken. And now she wants to walk back into our lives. Because what? She's scared? She regrets it? She wants forgiveness? She wants to tell you she's sorry. Sorry doesn't give Mia back 3 years. I know. Sorry doesn't give me back my wife. I know. Lena was on her feet now, facing him across the small living room. You think I don't know? You think I haven't been living with this for 3 years? Watching you from a distance, seeing you at the grocery store with Mia, watching you learn to braid her hair and pack her lunches and be both parents because Rachel decided you had to be. You think I haven't been drowning in what we did to you? Daniel stopped pacing. What do you mean, watching from a distance? Lena looked away. I moved back 2 years ago. I couldn't stay in Seattle knowing you were here, knowing Mia was here, knowing what you were going through. So I moved back and I kept an eye on things. Made sure you were okay. Made sure Mia was happy from a distance. You've been watching us? The violation of it hit Daniel like a slap. You've been here, in town, watching my daughter, and you never said anything? Never thought that might be something I had a right to know? I was protecting Rachel's secret. Rachel's dead. The words came out harsh, final. The woman I married, the woman I loved, she died 3 years ago when she walked out that door. Whatever this is, he gestured at the envelope still clutched in his hand. This isn't bringing her back. She's still Mia's mother. That stopped him cold, because it was true. Whatever Rachel had done, whatever choices she'd made, Mia had a right to know her mother, had a right to decide for herself whether forgiveness was possible. Daniel looked down at the envelope. Slowly, carefully, he opened it. The medical records came out first. Pages and pages of them, dense with terminology that meant nothing to him and everything at once. Pancreatic adenocarcinoma, metastatic disease, stage 4, prognosis poor. The words swam in front of his eyes, clinical and cold, describing the death sentence that had been handed to his wife while he was picking out paint colors for Mia's nursery and planning their 5th anniversary trip. Beneath the medical records were letters, 3 of them, each in Rachel's handwriting, that familiar slant he'd seen on grocery lists and birthday cards, and the note she'd left on the bathroom mirror the morning Mia was born that just said, "We made a person," with a little heart drawn underneath. His hands shook as he unfolded the first letter. Daniel, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. Either I'm already dead, or Lena has decided I don't get to keep this secret anymore. Either way, you deserve to know the truth. 6 weeks ago, I went to the doctor because I'd been having stomach pain. Bad pain, the kind I couldn't ignore anymore. They ran tests, found a mass, did more tests. And then a doctor who looked like he was 12 years old sat me down and told me I had 6 months to live. I didn't believe him at first. I'm 30 years old. We have a 2-year-old daughter. I finally figured out how to keep a plant alive. People like me don't get cancer. But the scans don't lie. The tumor markers don't lie. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer doesn't care that I have a life to live and a daughter to raise and a husband. I love more than I ever knew it was possible to love another human being. I've spent 6 weeks trying to figure out what to do. 6 weeks watching you play with Mia, watching you smile at me across the dinner table, watching our life together and knowing it has an expiration date. 6 weeks trying to imagine what it would do to you, to both of you, to watch me deteriorate. I can't do it, Daniel. I can't let Mia's memories of her mother be me sick and bald and wasting away in a hospital bed. I can't let you sacrifice the next 6 months of your life keeping vigil over my death. I can't be that selfish. So I'm making a different choice. I'm leaving. I'm telling you I need space, that I need to find myself, whatever bullshit excuse you'll believe. I'm breaking your heart now so that when I'm gone, you can be angry instead of devastated. Anger is survivable. The kind of grief I'd leave you with if you watched me die. That destroys people. I know you'll hate me for this. I'm counting on it. Hate is clean. Hate is simple. Hate will let you move on and find someone else and give Mia a mother who isn't a ghost. I love you. I love Mia. That's why I'm doing this. I'm so sorry. Rachel. The letter slipped from Daniel's fingers and drifted to the floor. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process the enormity of what he'd just read. There are 2 more, Lena said quietly. One she wrote a year after she left. One she wrote last month. Daniel bent to pick up the fallen letter, then reached for the second one. His hands were steadier now, or maybe he'd just gone numb. Daniel, it's been a year. I'm still alive. The doctors are calling it a miracle. I'm calling it a curse. The tumor is gone. The cancer is in remission. The treatment they said would maybe buy me a few extra months somehow put me in the 2% of people who survived this thing. And all I can think about is that I destroyed our family for nothing. I see you sometimes, not on purpose. This is a small town, and coincidence is inevitable. I saw you at the grocery store last month with Mia in the cart, and she's grown so much I almost didn't recognize her. She was singing something, making up words, and you were singing along like it was the most natural thing in the world. You looked tired. Happy, but tired. Like you'd figured out how to be enough for both of us. I wanted to run to you. I wanted to tell you I was sorry, that I was wrong, that I was still here and we could go back to the way things were. But we can't, can we? Because even if you could forgive me for leaving, even if we could somehow explain this to Mia in a way that doesn't destroy her, the cancer could come back tomorrow, next month, next year. And I can't do this to you twice. I can't let you believe we're safe and then rip that away again. So I'm staying away. I'm letting you live your life without me. It's the least I can do after everything I've taken from you. I still love you. I will always love you. But love isn't enough to fix what I've broken. Rachel. The second letter joined the first on the floor. Daniel felt like he was watching someone else's hands reach for the third letter, someone else's eyes read the words written there. Daniel, the cancer is back. Different this time. The liver, the lungs. Treatable, they say, but the prognosis isn't good. And I'm tired, Daniel. I'm so tired of fighting. I'm tired of being alone. I'm tired of living in a world where I can't be your wife or Mia's mother. I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything. I know I burned every bridge when I left. But I need to see you. I need to see Mia. I need to tell you both that I'm sorry, that I love you, that leaving you was the worst mistake of my life, even if I did it for what I thought were the right reasons. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking to come back. I'm just asking for a chance to say goodbye properly, to give Mia memories of her mother that aren't built on lies and absence, to tell you face to face that you deserve better than what I gave you. Lena will tell you where I am if you want to come. If you don't, I understand, but I had to ask. I had to try. I love you both more than life itself. I'm sorry I showed it in the worst possible way. Rachel. Daniel set the letter down carefully on the coffee table, like it might shatter if he moved too quickly. Then he stood and walked to the window, staring out at the rain that was still falling, had been falling this whole time, would probably keep falling long after this night was over. Behind him, Lena hadn't moved. Say something, she whispered. Where is she? Sacred Heart Hospital, room 412. She's been there for 2 weeks. Daniel's reflection stared back at him from the rain-streaked glass, a man who looked like him but felt like a stranger. You said you've been watching us for 2 years. Yes. Why? He heard Lena take a shaky breath. At first it was about Rachel, making sure you and Mia were okay because she couldn't, reporting back to her that you'd figured out how to French braid, and you never missed a parent-teacher conference, and Mia was thriving even though her mother was gone. She paused, and when she continued, her voice was different, smaller. But then it became about you. Watching you be the kind of father most kids only dream about. Watching you sacrifice everything to make sure Mia had stability and love. Watching you become this incredible man who refused to let bitterness destroy him. Another pause. Longer this time. I fell in love with you, Daniel. Somewhere between watching you teach Mia to ride a bike and seeing you cry in your car after dropping her off at her first day of preschool, I fell completely in love with you. And I know that's wrong. I know the timing is impossible, and you probably hate me for keeping Rachel's secret, and I have no right to feel anything for my sister's husband. But you asked why I've been watching, and that's why. Because I couldn't stay away. Daniel turned around slowly. Lena was still standing in the middle of his living room, still soaked, still trembling, looking at him with Rachel's eyes filled with something that definitely wasn't sisterly concern. You're telling me this now? His voice was carefully controlled. You're telling me you have feelings for me in the same conversation where you tell me my wife, my presumed dead wife, is actually alive and wants to see me. I'm telling you because you deserve to know all of it. Lena wrapped her arms around herself. I'm telling you because I'm tired of secrets and lies and watching from a distance. I'm telling you because Rachel is going to die, maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year, but she's going to die. And when she does, I don't want there to be any confusion about where I stand or what I want. And what do you want? I want to be there for you. The words came out in a rush. I want to help you through whatever comes next. I want to be the person Mia calls when she needs help with homework, or has a nightmare, or just wants someone to listen. I want... She stopped herself. I want things I have no right to want, but I'm done pretending I don't want them. Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. This is insane. All of this is insane. I know. My wife faked her death because she was trying to protect me from grief, survived against all medical odds, and now wants to reconcile while she's dying for real this time. Yes. And her sister has apparently been stalking me for 2 years and just confessed to being in love with me. Lena flinched at the word stalking, but nodded. Yes. And I'm supposed to what? Process all of this? Make decisions? Figure out what I'm feeling? Daniel dragged his hands through his hair. I don't even know where to start. Start with Mia. Lena's voice was gentle. Start with the fact that she has a mother who's alive and wants to know her. Everything else can wait. Can it? Daniel looked at her, really looked at her. Saw the exhaustion in her face, the guilt, the hope she was trying to hide but couldn't quite manage. Because you just dropped a bomb in my life and told me you want to be there when the fallout settles. That doesn't feel like something that can wait. Then don't make it wait. Lena took a step toward him. Ask me anything. Yell at me if you need to. Tell me to leave and never come back. But don't shut down. Don't go numb. You've been surviving for 3 years. Maybe it's time to let yourself feel something again. I feel plenty, Daniel said, and the anger in his voice surprised him. I feel angry that you kept this from me. I feel betrayed that Rachel thought leaving was better than letting me be her partner through the hardest thing she'd ever face. I feel terrified of what it's going to do to Mia to meet a mother she doesn't remember. I feel... He stopped because he'd been about to say he felt something when Lena looked at him. Something that scared him. Something that felt like recognition or possibility, or the first crack in the armor he'd built around himself when Rachel left. What? Lena pressed. You feel what? Confused, Daniel said finally. I feel confused. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Lena stood 3 feet away, and it felt too close and too far at the same time. Rachel's sister, his wife's sister, a woman who'd been living in the shadows of his life for 2 years, watching him become someone new, seeing him in ways Rachel never had. A woman who was looking at him right now like he was the only solid thing in a world that wouldn't stop spinning. I should go, Lena said, but she didn't move. Probably, Daniel agreed, but he didn't ask her to. You need time to think, to process, to decide what you want to tell Mia. Yeah. And I need to... Lena's voice caught. I need to go home and hate myself for dumping all of this on you at once, for telling you about my feelings when you have enough to deal with, for being selfish when I promised myself I'd just deliver Rachel's message and leave. Lena. She looked up at him, and in her eyes Daniel saw everything she'd been carrying, the weight of Rachel's secret, the guilt of watching him struggle, the impossible situation of loving someone you had no right to love. Thank you, he said. For what? For being honest. Finally. He managed something close to a smile. Even if your timing is terrible, Lena laughed, watery and broken. My timing has always been terrible. Ask anyone who knows me. I don't know you, Daniel said, and it was true. 4 meetings before Rachel left. 2 years of surveillance he hadn't known was happening. 1 midnight conversation that had rearranged his understanding of his own life. But I want to, after all this. When the dust settles. I want to know who you are beyond Rachel's sister. Why? Because you came here tonight. Daniel gestured at the letters on his coffee table, the truth spread out in black and white. You could have kept Rachel's secret, could have let her die without me ever knowing she was alive. But you didn't. You chose me. Chose Mia. Chose doing the hard right thing over the easy wrong thing. That means something. Lena's eyes filled with tears. I chose you months ago. I just finally found the courage to say it out loud. They stood there in the quiet of Daniel's living room, rain still drumming against the windows, and Daniel felt the foundations of his carefully reconstructed life shifting beneath his feet. Not breaking, shifting, making room for something he hadn't known was possible. "I need to think," he said finally. "About what to tell Mia. About whether to go to the hospital. About all of it. I know. And you need to dry off before you catch pneumonia." Lena looked down at herself, seemed to realize for the first time that she was still dripping on his floor. "Right. Yes. I should." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "Daniel? Yeah? Whatever you decide about Rachel, about seeing her or not seeing her, or what you tell Mia, I'll support it. I'll help however you need me to help. And if you decide you don't want me around, if my feelings make this too complicated, I'll respect that too." Lena: "I mean it. You and Mia come first. Before my feelings, before what I want, before everything. I won't let what I feel for you hurt either of you." Daniel crossed the room in 3 strides and, before he could talk himself out of it, pulled Lena into a hug. She stiffened for a moment in surprise, then melted against him, her arms coming up to wrap around his waist, her face pressing into his shoulder. She smelled like rain and something floral he couldn't name. She fit against him in a way that felt both foreign and familiar. And when she started to cry, really cry, the kind of sobbing that came from somewhere deep and wounded, Daniel held her tighter and let her. "I'm sorry," she kept saying between sobs. "I'm so sorry for all of it." "I know," Daniel murmured into her wet hair. "I know you are." They stood like that for longer than was probably appropriate, 2 people holding each other up in the wreckage of a night that had started with dishes and ended with revelations that changed everything. When Lena finally pulled back, her eyes were red and her face was blotchy, and she'd never looked more human. "I really should go," she said. "Yeah?" "You have my number if you need anything, if you want to talk, if you just need someone to watch Mia while you—" She didn't finish that sentence. "I'll call you," Daniel promised. Lena nodded and moved to the door. She had her hand on the knob when Daniel spoke again. "Lena, one more thing." She turned back. "This thing you feel for me, is it real? Or is it guilt and proximity and some kind of transference because I remind you of Rachel?" Lena held his gaze, steady despite her tears. "It's real. I've spent 2 years trying to convince myself it wasn't, that it was just my imagination or loneliness or me trying to fix what Rachel broke. But it's real, Daniel, and it terrifies me. But it's real." Daniel nodded slowly. "Okay, I needed to know. Why? Because if I'm going to figure out what I feel, I need to know what I'm figuring out. Need to know if this is just you or if it's—" He stopped himself. "If it's you too," Lena finished softly. "Yeah. And is it?" Daniel looked at this woman standing in his doorway, backlit by the porch light and the rain and the impossible situation they'd found themselves in. Rachel's sister. A stranger who'd been watching over his family. Someone who'd just upended his entire world and somehow made him feel more alive than he had in 3 years. "I don't know yet," he said honestly, "but I think it might be." Lena smiled, sad and hopeful at the same time. "That's enough for now." She left then, disappearing into the rain and the night, leaving Daniel alone with 3 letters, a stack of medical records, and the ruins of every assumption he'd built his life on for the past 3 years. He locked the door behind her and walked back to the coffee table, sinking onto the couch and picking up Rachel's first letter again. Read it through once more, then again, trying to reconcile the woman who wrote these words with the woman he'd thought he married. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Daniel's head snapped up. He'd forgotten, in the chaos of the last hour, that Mia was sleeping upstairs, that he had a daughter who would wake up tomorrow morning and ask what was for breakfast and whether she could wear her princess dress to preschool, blissfully unaware that her entire world was about to change. He folded the letters carefully and tucked them back into the envelope along with the medical records. Stood and walked to the base of the stairs, listening to the silence of his daughter's sleep. How did you tell a 4-year-old that her mother was alive? That she'd been alive this whole time? That she'd left not because she didn't love them, but because she loved them too much to let them watch her die? How did you explain that the mother she barely remembered was dying now, really dying, and wanted to meet her before it was too late? How did you do any of this without breaking her? Daniel climbed the stairs, his feet finding the quiet spots on each step through years of practice. Mia's door was cracked open, spilling a sliver of nightlight glow into the hallway. He pushed it wider and stepped inside. She was sprawled across her bed like a starfish, blankets kicked off despite the chill in the air, her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched in one hand. Her hair, dark like Rachel's, wild like his, fanned across her pillow. She'd gotten Rachel's face, her delicate features and long eyelashes, and the little dimple in her left cheek that appeared when she smiled. Looking at her, Daniel saw his wife everywhere. He sat on the edge of her bed, careful not to wake her, and brushed a strand of hair off her forehead. Mia made a small sound and rolled toward him, her free hand reaching out to grab his sleeve. "Daddy?" Her voice was thick with sleep. "I'm here, baby. Go back to sleep." "Bad dream?" "No bad dream. Just checking on you." Mia's eyes opened briefly, focused on him with that uncanny awareness children sometimes had. "You're sad." "Just thinking." "About Mommy?" The question hit Daniel like a truck. Mia almost never asked about Rachel anymore. In the first year after Rachel left, she'd asked constantly, where was Mommy? When was Mommy coming home? Did Mommy still love her? Daniel had answered as best he could with the limited truth he had. Mommy had to go away. Daddy didn't know when she'd be back. Of course, Mommy loved her. Eventually, the questions had slowed, then stopped. Mia had accepted her mother's absence the way children accepted all incomprehensible things, with resilience and adaptation and the building of a world that made sense without the missing piece. "Yeah," Daniel said softly, thinking about Mommy. "I don't remember her face anymore," Mia said, and then her eyes closed again, sleep reclaiming her before she could see the way her father's face crumpled at those words. Daniel sat there in the dark of his daughter's room, listening to her breathe, and let himself cry for the first time in 3 years. Quiet tears that dripped onto Mia's blanket and soaked into fabric already stained with juice and marker and the evidence of a life being lived despite everything. He cried for the wife he'd lost twice, once to a lie, once to the truth. He cried for the years Mia would never get back with her mother. He cried for himself, for the man he'd been before all this, and the man he'd had to become to survive it. And somewhere in the crying, mixed with the grief and anger and confusion, was something else. Something that felt like the first trembling edge of hope, because Rachel was alive, because Mia could meet her mother, because maybe, just maybe, some broken things could be put back together in a way that made them stronger for having been shattered. When the tears finally stopped, Daniel kissed Mia's forehead and pulled her blankets back over her, stood and walked to the window, looking out at a rain that was finally starting to ease. Tomorrow he would figure out what to tell Mia. Tomorrow he would decide whether to go to Sacred Heart Hospital and face the woman who'd left him. Tomorrow he would start to untangle what he felt for Lena from what he'd felt for Rachel, what was past from what might be future. But tonight he just stood in his daughter's room and let himself feel everything at once. The knock that had shattered his night had also shattered his carefully maintained numbness. And Daniel was discovering that feeling everything, even when it hurt, was better than feeling nothing at all. Morning came too quickly and not quickly enough. Daniel had spent what remained of the night alternating between lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, and pacing the downstairs rooms like a ghost haunting his own house. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Rachel's handwriting on those letters, heard Lena's voice breaking as she confessed feelings she had no right to have, felt the weight of decisions he had no idea how to make. At 6:30, he heard Mia's door open and her small feet padding across the hallway to the bathroom. The familiar sounds of her morning routine, toilet flushing, water running, her off-key humming of whatever song had gotten stuck in her head, pulled him back into the immediate reality of being a father. Whatever chaos existed in his emotional landscape, Mia still needed breakfast and clean clothes and someone to help her find her left shoe that was always, always missing. He met her at the bottom of the stairs. She was wearing mismatched pajamas and holding a rabbit by one ear, her hair standing up in directions that defied physics. "Morning, Bug," Daniel said, and was grateful his voice sounded almost normal. "Morning, Daddy." Mia yawned wide enough to show her missing bottom tooth. "Can we have the dinosaur pancakes?" "The dinosaur pancakes take forever." "But they're so good." She dragged out the word "so" into multiple syllables, a technique she'd perfected for maximum persuasive effect. Daniel looked at his daughter, at her hopeful face and sleep-rumpled hair and complete trust that her father would give her what she wanted because he always did, and felt his heart crack a little wider. How was he supposed to tell her that her mother was alive? How was he supposed to prepare her for meeting a woman she didn't remember, a woman who was dying? "Dinosaur pancakes it is," he heard himself say. Mia's face lit up. "You're the best daddy in the whole world." "Just the world? Not the universe?" "The universe, too. And also space." "Space is part of the universe, Bug." Mia considered this as she climbed onto her chair at the kitchen table. "Then the universe twice." Daniel pulled out the dinosaur-shaped pancake molds he'd bought on a whim 6 months ago and had used approximately 40 times since, because saying no to Mia was a skill he'd never quite mastered. As he mixed batter and heated the griddle, Mia chattered about her upcoming day. Something about blocks in the building center and how Emma always took the blue ones and whether giraffes could swim or just not want to. It was so normal, so perfectly, painfully normal. And Daniel stood at the stove making dinosaur pancakes and wondered how much longer their normal had left before everything changed. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with batter-covered hands and saw a text from a number he didn't recognize. "It's Lena. I know it's early. Just wanted to check if you're okay. No pressure to respond. Just checking." Daniel stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. What was he supposed to say? That he was fine? That he wasn't? That he'd spent the night cycling through every emotion in the spectrum and had landed somewhere in the territory of numb confusion? "Who's texting you?" Mia asked, around a mouthful of orange juice. "Just a friend." "What friend?" "Someone I met recently." Mia accepted this without question, her attention already back on the rabbit she'd propped up in the chair beside her. Daniel typed out a quick response. "I'm okay. Still processing. Going to talk to Mia today." The reply came within seconds. "Do you want me there? Or would that make it harder?" Daniel hadn't considered that option. Having Lena present would mean Mia meeting her aunt for the first time, or technically the second time, but Mia had been a baby and wouldn't remember. It would mean introducing another variable into an already impossibly complicated equation. But it would also mean not being alone when he had to watch his daughter's face process information that would reshape her understanding of her own life. "Maybe," he typed. "Let me think about it. I'll call you later." He pocketed the phone and focused on rescuing a Stegosaurus pancake that was threatening to burn. Got it onto Mia's plate along with a Triceratops and a T-Rex, added syrup and strawberries, and sat down across from her with coffee that was more necessity than pleasure. "Daddy?" Mia poked at her dinosaur with a fork. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think Mommy is happy where she is?" Daniel's hand froze halfway to his coffee mug. They hadn't talked about Rachel in months. Mia's question last night had been the first mention in so long Daniel had almost forgotten his daughter still thought about her mother. "What makes you ask that, Bug?" Mia shrugged, cutting her T-Rex into smaller pieces. "Emma's mommy and daddy got divorced, and now Emma sees her daddy on weekends, and her mommy says he's happier with his new family. I was just wondering if our mommy is happier wherever she went." The casual way Mia said it, our mommy, like Rachel was a shared possession they'd misplaced, made Daniel's chest tight. "I think," he said carefully, "that wherever your mommy is, she thinks about you all the time, and she loves you very much. But she left." "She did." Why? It was the question Daniel had been asking himself for 3 years. The question he'd thought had no good answer. The question he now knew had an answer so complicated, he didn't know where to begin. "Sometimes grown-ups make decisions that are really hard to understand," Daniel said. "Even other grown-ups have trouble understanding them." "Did you understand why she left?" "No, Bug, I didn't." "Do you understand now?" Daniel looked at his daughter, at her serious face and her dinosaur pancakes and the life they'd built together in Rachel's absence, and made a decision. "Mia, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you listen to me for a few minutes?" Something in his tone made Mia set down her fork and give him her full attention. "Okay." "Last night, after you went to bed, someone came to see me. Her name is Lena, and she's your mommy's sister, your aunt." "I have an aunt?" "You do." And she told me something I didn't know, something about why your mommy left. Mia's eyes were wide. What? Your mommy was sick, really sick. She had something called cancer, which is a disease that makes people very ill. And when she found out she was sick, she made a choice. She decided to go away because she didn't want you to see her being sick. She thought it would be better for you to remember her healthy than to watch her not be healthy anymore. Is she still sick? This was the moment. The choice that would determine how the rest of this conversation went, how the rest of Mia's life unfolded. Daniel could tell her that Rachel had died, could maintain the fiction that Mia's mother was gone for good, could protect his daughter from the complicated reality of a mother who was dying but not yet dead, who wanted reconciliation but might not live long enough for it to matter. But he'd spent 3 years living with lies told for good reasons, and he was done with them. She got better for a while, Daniel said, but now she's sick again. And Mia, she wants to see you. She wants to meet you and tell you that she's sorry she left and that she loves you. Mia was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, is she gonna die? I don't know, Bug. Maybe. The doctors are trying to help her, but sometimes even doctors can't fix everything. If I see her and then she dies, I'll be sad. I know. But if I don't see her and she dies, I'll also be sad. Daniel reached across the table and took Mia's small hand in his. That's exactly right. Both choices have sad in them. But I think seeing her means you get to decide how you feel instead of always wondering. Do you want to see her? The question caught Daniel off guard. He'd been so focused on what this meant for Mia that he hadn't fully processed what it meant for him. Did he want to see Rachel? The woman who'd left him? The woman who'd loved him enough to break his heart rather than let him watch her die? The woman who'd made an impossible choice and had to live with the consequences? I think I need to, he said finally. Not because I want to exactly, but because I need to understand. And because I need to hear her say she's sorry. And then what? Then I don't know. We figure it out as we go. Mia nodded slowly, then withdrew her hand and picked up her fork again. She took a bite of Triceratops, chewed thoughtfully, and swallowed. Okay. Okay? Okay, I'll see her, but you have to come with me. I wouldn't let you do this alone, Bug. I promise. And can my aunt come too? If she's Mommy's sister, she probably knows good things about Mommy. Things I don't know. Daniel felt something in his chest loosen. His 4-year-old daughter, who'd just learned her mother was alive and dying in the same conversation, was already thinking about building connections and gathering information and approaching this impossible situation with more grace than most adults could manage. I think Lena would really like that, he said. They finished breakfast in relative quiet, Mia working through her feelings by arranging her strawberries and patterns, and Daniel working through his by drinking coffee and trying not to think too hard about what the next few hours would bring. When Mia's plate was empty and she'd drunk the last of her juice, she slid off her chair and came around the table to hug him. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Bug. More than anything. Even more than coffee? Even more than coffee. Even more than that show you watch when you think I'm asleep? Daniel laughed despite everything. How do you know about that? I hear the music sometimes. Mia grinned up at him. You're not as quiet as you think. Apparently not. Yes, I love you more than the show, too. Good. She squeezed him tighter, then pulled back. When are we going to see Mommy? Let me make some calls and figure that out. Why don't you go get dressed while I do that? Mia nodded and headed upstairs, rabbit dangling from one hand. Daniel watched her go, then pulled out his phone and stared at Lena's number for a long moment before pressing call. She answered on the second ring. Daniel? We want to come. Mia and me. Today, if that's possible. Really? The hope in Lena's voice was palpable. You told her? Just now. She took it better than I expected. Asked if you could come with us. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. She wants me there? She said you're her aunt and you probably know good things about Rachel. She wants to hear them. Oh. Lena's voice went thick. I didn't expect that. Neither did I, but here we are. Daniel rubbed his free hand across his face. Can you call the hospital? Make sure Rachel's up for visitors? I don't want to bring Mia there if it's going to be too much. I'll call right now. What time were you thinking? Daniel looked at the clock. 8:15. Give me a couple hours to get us ready. Get Mia settled about what's happening. Maybe around 11? I'll make it happen. Daniel? Yeah? Thank you. For doing this. For giving Rachel this chance. She paused. For trusting me to be part of it. Mia's the one who asked for you. I'm just following my daughter's lead. Still, thank you. They hung up and Daniel sat in his quiet kitchen listening to Mia move around upstairs, opening and closing drawers, probably trying on 17 different outfits before settling on the one she'd wear. He thought about Rachel lying in a hospital bed 2 miles away, waiting to see if her husband and daughter would come. Thought about Lena, who'd carried secrets for 3 years and was now being pulled into the center of a reunion she'd facilitated but might not survive emotionally. Thought about himself and how much he'd changed in 3 years. How he'd gone from being a husband who relied on his wife to manage the emotional terrain of their family to being a father who could French braid hair and negotiate snack choices and handle bedtime meltdowns with patience he didn't know he possessed. How he'd built a life that worked, even if it wasn't the life he'd imagined. And now that life was about to collide with the past he'd thought was dead. His phone buzzed. Lena again. Rachel says yes. She's crying, but she says yes. Room 412, anytime after 11. The nurses know we're coming. Daniel typed back. We'll be there. Then he climbed the stairs to help his daughter pick an outfit for meeting her mother. 2 hours later, Daniel stood in the parking lot of Sacred Heart Hospital with Mia's hand in his and his heart in his throat. Mia had settled on her purple dress with the flowers on it, because Mommy might like flowers, she'd reasoned, and had insisted on bringing her rabbit for moral support. Daniel had put on the nicest shirt he owned that didn't require ironing and spent 10 minutes staring at himself in the bathroom mirror, trying to recognize the man looking back. Lena was waiting by the entrance, wearing jeans and a sweater that looked like she'd grabbed the first things she could find. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore no makeup, and when she saw them approaching, her face did something complicated. Hey, she said softly. Hey. Daniel squeezed Mia's hand. Mia, this is Lena, your Aunt Lena. Mia studied Lena with the intense scrutiny only children could manage. You look like the pictures Daddy has of Mommy. We're sisters, Lena said, crouching down to Mia's level. So we look alike. It's nice to finally meet you properly, Mia. You were just a baby last time I saw you. Daddy says you know good things about Mommy. I do, lots of them. I could tell you stories for hours. Will you tell me some today? If you want me to, absolutely. Mia seemed satisfied with this answer. She looked up at Daniel. I'm ready. Daniel wasn't sure he'd ever be ready, but he nodded anyway. The three of them walked into the hospital together, following familiar hallways that Daniel remembered from when his father was dying. The smell was the same, antiseptic and flowers, and something underneath that was unmistakably illness. Mia held tighter to his hand. It's okay to be nervous, Daniel told her. Are you nervous? Terrified. But you're still doing it? That's what being brave is, Bug. Being scared but doing the thing anyway. They took the elevator to the 4th floor, walked down a corridor where nurses moved quietly and machines beeped rhythmic reassurances that people were still alive, still fighting. Room 412 was at the end of the hall, door half open, and Daniel stopped just outside it. I need a minute, he said to Lena. She nodded and knelt beside Mia. Hey, want to see something cool? They have a fish tank in the waiting room around the corner. Want to check it out while your dad gets ready? Mia looked between Daniel and Lena, seemed to understand that her father needed space, and nodded. Okay, but just for a minute. Just for a minute, Lena agreed. They walked away, leaving Daniel alone in the hallway outside his dying wife's hospital room. He could hear sounds from inside. The beep of monitors, the rustle of sheets, breathing that sounded labored even from here. Could see the edge of the bed through the gap in the door, white sheets in the shape of a body beneath them. 3 years. 3 years of thinking she was gone. 3 years of anger and grief and slowly learning to live again. And now he was supposed to walk through that door and face her. Daniel took a breath. Another. Then he pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. Rachel was smaller than he remembered. That was his first thought. She'd always been petite, but now she looked fragile in a way that made his chest ache. Her hair was gone, not surprising given the cancer treatments, covered by a soft blue cap. Her face was pale, thinner, but still her face. Still the woman he'd married in a courthouse ceremony because they couldn't wait for a fancy wedding. Still the woman who'd danced in their kitchen at midnight and fallen asleep on his shoulder during movies and given him a daughter who had her eyes. Those eyes opened now and found him standing in the doorway. For a moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. They just looked at each other across the space of a hospital room and 3 years and choices that couldn't be unmade. Daniel. His name came out as barely more than a whisper. Rachel. You came. Did you think I wouldn't? I didn't know. Tears were already streaming down her face. I hoped, but I didn't know. Daniel moved further into the room but didn't approach the bed. Stayed near the wall where he could maintain distance, could keep the careful control he'd wrapped around himself like armor. Lena told me everything, showed me the letters. I'm sorry. Which part are you sorry for? Leaving? Lying? Making decisions for both of us without giving me a choice? Letting Mia grow up without her mother? Rachel flinched at each question like they were physical blows. All of it. Every single part of it. I thought I was protecting you, and all I did was hurt you worse. You did. Daniel's voice was hard. You broke something, Rachel. Not just between us. In Mia. She stopped asking about you eventually. Did you know that? Stopped wondering when you were coming home because she learned that some questions don't have good answers. I know. Lena told me. Lena has been watching us for 2 years. Did you ask her to do that, or did she do it on her own? I asked. Rachel's hands twisted the sheet. I needed to know you were okay, that Mia was okay. I had no right to need that, but I needed it anyway. So you sent your sister to spy on us? To make sure you had help if you needed it, to be there in case... Rachel's voice broke. In case you fell apart and there was nobody to catch you. I didn't fall apart. I know, you became amazing. Lena would call me and tell me about the things you did with Mia, the father you became, and I was so proud and so devastated because you became that person without me. Because you didn't need me. I needed you every single day, Daniel said, and the admission cost him something. Every time Mia cried for you, every time I had to answer her questions with half-truths because I didn't know the whole truth myself, every time I looked at her face and saw yours and wondered what I did wrong that made you leave. You didn't do anything wrong. Rachel was crying harder now. Daniel, you were perfect. You are perfect. This was never about you not being enough. This was about me being too much of a coward to let you watch me die. So you made me think you were already dead. You made Mia think her mother abandoned her. How is that better? It's not. Rachel met his eyes fully for the first time. It's not better. It was just the only choice I could make at the time, and I've had 3 years to realize it was the wrong one. I can't take it back. I can't undo the damage. All I can do is tell you I'm sorry and hope that someday you might be able to forgive me. Daniel laughed bitterly. Forgive you? Rachel, I don't even know how to be in the same room with you. I don't know how to reconcile the woman I loved with the woman who left. I don't know how to feel about any of this. Then don't. Rachel's voice was stronger now, firmer. Don't feel anything. Be angry. Hate me. Whatever you need to do to get through this. But please, please let Mia come in. Let me see her. Let me tell her I'm sorry. I'm not asking for forgiveness from you. I'm not asking for us to fix this or go back to what we were. I'm just asking to meet my daughter before I die. She doesn't remember you. I know. She's going to walk in here and see a stranger. I know. And when you die, if you die, she's going to have to grieve someone she just met. Is that fair to her? Rachel was quiet for a long moment. No, it's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. But Daniel, not knowing her mother at all, is that more fair? Never having a chance to hear that she was wanted and loved and thought about every single day? Never getting to ask questions or hear stories or have any connection to half of where she came from? Daniel wanted to argue, wanted to say that Mia was fine, that she'd adapted, that she didn't need the complication of a dying mother walking back into her life. But he remembered Mia's question that morning. Did he think her mommy was happy where she was? Remembered the casual way she'd referenced Rachel, like a puzzle piece she knew was missing even if she couldn't see the whole picture. She wants to meet you, he said finally. She asked her Aunt Lena to come too, to tell her good things about you. Fresh tears spilled down Rachel's cheeks. She knows about Lena? As of this morning. We've had a lot of revelations in the last 12 hours. I can't imagine how hard this has been. No, Daniel agreed. You really can't. They stared at each other across the room, and Daniel saw the moment Rachel understood that whatever they'd been to each other before was gone. Dead and buried, and not coming back no matter how many apologies she offered or how much she wished things could be different. I loved you, Rachel said softly. I need you to know that. When I left, it was because I loved you too much to put you through what was coming. I made the wrong choice, but it came from love. Love is supposed to trust the other person to make their own choices, Daniel said. You didn't trust me to be strong enough to handle your cancer. You didn't trust our marriage to survive the hard stuff. You just decided for both of us. You're right. I know I am. I wish I could go back and do it differently. But you can't. None of us can. Daniel took a breath. I'm going to get Mia now. Are you ready? No, but I want to meet her anyway. Daniel nodded and walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame and looked back at the woman who used to be his wife. For what it's worth, I don't hate you. I want to. It would be easier if I did, but I don't. What do you feel? Sad, Daniel said. Just really, really sad that it had to be this way. He left before Rachel could respond, walking down the hallway on legs that felt unsteady. Found Lena and Mia in the waiting room, Mia's face pressed against the fish tank glass, watching a bright yellow fish navigate through plastic coral. That one's my favorite, Mia announced without turning around. He's small, but he's fast. Good choice. Daniel knelt beside her. You ready to meet your mom? Mia turned to look at him, and in her face he saw fear and excitement and a bravery that humbled him. Is she nice? She's your mom, and she loves you very much, and she's very sorry she's been gone. Okay. Mia took his hand, then reached for Lena's. Let's go. The three of them walked down the hallway together, a strange little unit bound by complicated histories and impossible circumstances. Outside room 412, Daniel knelt down one more time. Remember, he said to Mia, she's sick, so she might look tired or different than you expect. But she's still your mom, okay? Okay, Daddy. He stood and pushed open the door. Rachel had managed to sit up a bit straighter, had smoothed her sheets, had arranged herself as best she could for this moment she'd been waiting for. When she saw Mia, her face transformed, grief and joy and love so intense it was almost painful to witness. Mia, she breathed. Oh, Mia, you're so big. Mia hung back, pressed against Daniel's leg, suddenly shy. Hi. Hi, baby. I'm your mom. I know. Daddy told me. He said you were sick, and that's why you went away. That's right. I was very sick, and I made a choice I thought was right, but turned out to be wrong. And I'm so sorry I haven't been there. Mia considered this. Then, did it hurt, being sick? Sometimes, but the worst part wasn't the hurting. The worst part was missing you. I missed you too, except I didn't remember you, so I didn't know I was missing you. But Daddy said I was. Rachel's eyes moved to Daniel, standing in the doorway with Lena beside him. Your daddy is a very smart man. He's the best daddy in the universe, twice. I believe it. Rachel's voice was shaking. Mia, would it be okay if you came a little closer? I'd really like to see you better. Mia looked up at Daniel. He nodded encouragingly. Slowly, still clutching her rabbit, Mia walked to the side of the bed. Rachel reached out with a trembling hand and gently touched Mia's hair. You have my hair, she said through tears, all curly and impossible to tame. Daddy can French braid it now, Mia said proudly. It took him a long time to learn, but he practiced on my dolls. Rachel smiled through her tears. Of course he did. Can I tell you something? Mia nodded. I think about you every single day, every morning when I wake up and every night before I sleep. And even though I wasn't there, I was always loving you. Always. Aunt Lena says she'll tell me stories about you, Mia said. Good stories. Rachel's eyes found Lena standing by the door. Lena has the best stories. She knows all my secrets. Not all of them, Lena said softly, speaking for the first time since they'd entered the room. You always kept some back. The sisters looked at each other, and something passed between them that Daniel couldn't quite read. Understanding, maybe. Or forgiveness. Or just the complicated love between siblings who'd hurt each other and were trying to find their way back. Thank you, Rachel said to Lena, for watching over them, for being there when I couldn't be, for... She stopped, seemed to reconsider her words. For everything. Lena nodded, her own eyes wet. Mia, oblivious to the adult undercurrents swirling around her, held up her rabbit. This is Mr. Hopscotch. He helps me when I'm scared. He looks very helpful, Rachel said seriously. Do you think he could help me too? I'm a little scared right now. Mia thought about this, then carefully placed the rabbit on Rachel's lap. You can borrow him, but I need him back for bedtime. I promise I'll take very good care of him until then. And just like that, with the simple transaction of a stuffed rabbit, Mia began building a bridge to her mother. Daniel watched them together, his daughter and his wife, strangers learning each other, and felt something shift in his chest. The anger was still there. The hurt was still there. But underneath it all was a reluctant acceptance that this moment, however painful and complicated, was happening exactly as it needed to. Rachel caught his eye over Mia's head, and in her gaze was gratitude so profound it didn't need words. Lena's hand found his in the doorway, squeezed once, then let go. And in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and sorrow, a family that had been shattered began the impossible work of finding a new shape. The hour that followed existed in a strange suspended reality where past and present collided and somehow coexisted. Mia sat on the edge of Rachel's hospital bed, legs swinging freely, asking questions with the fearless curiosity of a child who hadn't yet learned that some topics were supposed to be painful. Rachel answered each one with a voice that grew stronger as she talked, color returning to her pale cheeks, her hands animated as she described memories Mia was too young to have formed. You were obsessed with bubbles, Rachel was saying, her fingers unconsciously stroking Mr. Hopscotch's worn ear. We'd go through bottles of bubble solution every week. Your daddy would blow them and you'd chase them around the backyard, laughing so hard you'd hiccup. I still like bubbles, Mia said, but now I can blow them myself. I bet you're very good at it. I am. Daddy says I'm the best bubble blower in the whole neighborhood. Rachel's eyes found Daniel, who was still standing near the door with Lena. He'd moved to a chair at some point, Lena beside him, both of them quiet witnesses to this reunion that felt both miraculous and heartbreaking. Your daddy is very generous with his compliments. He tells the truth, Mia insisted with the fierce loyalty only a 4-year-old could muster. He never lies to me. The words landed in the room like stones. Daniel saw Rachel flinch, saw her absorb the implicit accusation in Mia's innocent statement. He never lies to me. Unlike some people. Unlike you. You're right, Rachel said softly. The truth is very important, and Mia, I need to tell you the truth about something. When I left, I told your daddy I needed space. But that wasn't the whole truth. The real truth was that I was sick, and I was scared, and I made a bad choice. I left because I thought it would hurt you less than watching me be sick. But I was wrong. I hurt you more by leaving, and I'm sorrier about that than I've ever been about anything in my whole life. Mia tilted her head, processing. Emma's mommy says being sorry means you try to fix what you broke. Emma's mommy is very wise. The problem is, some things are too broken to fix back to the way they were. But maybe if the people involved want to try, they can make something new, something different, but still good. Like when Daddy glued my favorite cup back together? It has cracks now, but it still holds juice. Rachel smiled, and it was the first genuine smile Daniel had seen on her face since he'd walked into the room. Exactly like that. Okay. Mia swung her legs harder, her heels thumping against the bed frame. Then we can make something new. Just like that. 4 years old, and she'd found a way through the complexity that the adults were still struggling to navigate. Daniel felt Lena's hand find his again, and this time neither of them let go. Can I ask you something? Mia said to Rachel. Anything. Are you going to die? The room went silent except for the steady beep of monitors and the distant sound of hospital announcements over the intercom. Rachel's smile faded, replaced by something more honest and harder to look at. I might, she said, because apparently she'd decided to honor Mia's declaration that truth was important. The doctors are trying very hard to help me get better, but sometimes even doctors can't fix everything. So yes, baby, I might die. When? I don't know. Nobody knows exactly when people are going to die, but I'm going to try very hard to stay alive as long as I can. And whatever time I have, I want to spend some of it with you. That's okay with you and your daddy. Mia looked back at Daniel. Is it okay, Daddy? Every eye in the room turned to him. Rachel's, filled with hope and fear in equal measure. Lena's, understanding and supportive whatever he chose. Mia's, trusting him to make the right decision even when there was no clear right decision to make. Yeah, Bug, Daniel heard himself say. It's okay. The relief on Rachel's face was palpable. Thank you. Daniel, thank you. He nodded, unable to trust his voice with more words. Beside him, Lena's grip on his hand tightened briefly before releasing. I should probably get going, Lena said, standing. Let you all have some time together. You don't have to leave, Rachel said quickly. Lena, you don't have to leave. I think maybe I do. Lena's voice was gentle but firm. This is your time with Mia and Daniel. I'll come back later if that's okay. Will you tell me the stories? Mia asked. The ones about Mommy? I promise. How about tomorrow? We could get ice cream and I could tell you all about what your mom was like when she was little. Mia's face lit up. Really? Really? If your dad says it's okay. Mia turned pleading eyes to Daniel. Can I, Daddy? Please? Daniel looked at Lena, saw the question in her eyes that had nothing to do with ice cream and stories and everything to do with the conversation they'd had in his living room at midnight. Saw her asking permission to be part of their lives in a real way, not just watching from the shadows anymore. Yeah, he said. That sounds good. Lena's smile was soft and grateful. She crossed to the bed and kissed the top of Rachel's head, a gesture so casual and familiar that it spoke of years of sisterhood Daniel hadn't witnessed. I'll see you tomorrow, Rach. Rest, okay? Okay? Lena? Rachel caught her sister's hand. Thank you for everything, for breaking your promise to me. It was the right thing to do. I know it was. Lena squeezed Rachel's hand once and then was gone, the door closing softly behind her. Her absence changed the energy in the room. What had been a cautious gathering of people learning to be around each other became something more intimate, a mother and daughter, and the man who connected them, sitting in a hospital room trying to figure out what came next. Daddy? Can I show Mommy my drawings? Mia asked suddenly. The ones in your phone? Daniel pulled out his phone, pulling up the photo album he'd labeled Mia's Art that contained approximately 300 pictures of crayon masterpieces and finger paint abstracts. He handed the phone to Mia, who scrambled closer to Rachel and started scrolling through with the confident navigation of a child raised in the digital age. This one is our house, Mia narrated. See? That's the door, and those are windows, and that's the tree in the front yard. And this one is you and me at the park. This one is a rainbow. This one is Mr. Hopscotch, but I made him purple instead of brown, because I like purple better. Rachel looked at each image like it was precious art destined for a museum. These are beautiful, Mia. You're so talented. Daddy says I get it from you. He says you used to draw all the time. I did. I love drawing. Rachel glanced at Daniel. I didn't know you told her that. She asks questions, Daniel said. I answer them when I can. What else did you tell her about me? Daniel leaned back in his chair, considering. That you laughed really loud. That you couldn't cook, but you tried anyway. That you cried at commercials with dogs in them. That you loved thunderstorms and hated mushrooms and could quote entire movies after watching them once. That's all true, Rachel said, something like wonder in her voice. You remembered all that. I remember everything. The words came out harder than Daniel intended. That's the problem, Rachel. I remember everything about us, and none of those memories prepared me for you leaving or for this. Mia, sensing the shift in tone, looked up from the phone. Are you fighting? No, Bug, Daniel said quickly. Just talking about grown-up stuff. Emma's parents talk about grown-up stuff right before they fight. Rachel laughed, the sound catching somewhere between amusement and tears. Your daughter is very observant. She gets that from you, too. They sat in complicated silence for a moment, Mia scrolling through more pictures until a nurse knocked and entered carrying a tray of medications. Sorry to interrupt, the nurse said cheerfully. Time for your afternoon doses, Rachel. Rachel made a face. Can we skip today? You know the answer to that. The nurse was middle-aged and efficient, clearly someone who'd seen every type of patient resistance and remained unmoved by it. She looked at Mia with kind eyes. You must be the daughter I've heard so much about. I'm Mia. I'm 4. Well, almost 4.5. 4.5 is very grown up. Are you being good for your mommy? I just met her today, Mia said matter-of-factly, but I'm trying to be good. The nurse's eyebrows rose slightly, but she recovered quickly. Well, you're doing a great job. Rachel, I need you to take these, and then you should probably rest for a bit. Doctor's orders. I'm not tired. You will be in about 20 minutes when the pain medication kicks in. The nurse handed Rachel a small cup of pills and a glass of water, waiting while Rachel swallowed them with the resigned air of someone who'd done this too many times to count. I'll be back to check vitals in an hour. She left as efficiently as she'd arrived. Rachel set the empty cup on her bedside table and looked at Mia with obvious reluctance. I'm going to get sleepy soon, baby. The medicine makes me tired. But I'm so glad you came to see me today. Can I come back tomorrow? Rachel's eyes sought Daniel's. That's up to your daddy. Daniel found himself nodding before he'd fully thought it through. Yeah, we can come back. Really? Hope transformed Rachel's exhausted face. Really, if you're up for it, we'll visit. Maybe not every day. Mia has preschool and I have work, but we'll figure something out. Thank you. Rachel's hand moved like she wanted to reach for him, then stopped, uncertain. Daniel, I know I don't deserve this, any of this, but thank you. I'm not doing it for you, Daniel said, and the honesty felt necessary even though it was cruel. I'm doing it for Mia. She deserves to know her mother. I know, that's enough. It has to be enough. Mia, oblivious to the tension, kissed Rachel's cheek with the casual affection of a child who'd already decided the stranger was family. Feel better, Mommy. I'll see you tomorrow. I can't wait. Rachel's voice was already starting to slur slightly, the medication taking effect. Mia, I love you so much. I love you too, Mia said easily, generously, giving away her love like it cost nothing because at 4 years old she hadn't learned yet that some people didn't deserve it. Daniel stood and offered his hand to Mia. Come on, Bug. Let's let your mom rest. They were almost to the door when Rachel called out, Daniel, wait! Can we talk? Just for a minute. Daniel looked down at Mia. Want to go find that fish tank again? I'll meet you there in 2 minutes. Okay, Daddy. Count to 60 twice. I will. Mia skipped out into the hallway, already humming. Daniel watched her go, making sure she turned the right direction toward the waiting room before turning back to Rachel. What? I need to know. Rachel's words were coming slower now, fighting against the pull of medication. Lena, did she tell you about how she feels? Daniel's jaw tightened. That's not your business anymore, Rachel. She's my sister. You're my husband. It's absolutely my business. I'm your husband on paper, that's all. Whatever Lena feels or doesn't feel, whatever I feel or don't feel, that's between us. You gave up the right to have opinions about my life when you walked out of it. I know. You're right. Rachel's eyes were drooping now, fighting to stay open. I just want you to know that if something happens between you two, I won't be angry. I don't have the right to be angry. And Lena, she's good. She's better than me in all the ways that matter. If you're going to move on with someone, I'm glad it's her. I'm not moving on with anyone, Daniel said firmly. I'm trying to figure out how to help my daughter process having a dying mother. That's it. That's all I can handle right now. Okay. Rachel's eyes finally closed. Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought it up. No, you shouldn't have. Daniel? What? I really did love you. Still do. In case that matters. Daniel looked at her lying there, already half asleep, looking small and fragile and nothing like the vibrant woman he'd married. It matters, just not in the way you want it to. He left before she could respond, pulling the door shut behind him and standing in the hallway taking deep breaths that didn't quite fill his lungs. His hands were shaking and his chest felt tight, and he had no idea how he was supposed to do this. Bring his daughter to visit a dying woman, navigate whatever complicated thing was happening with Lena, manage his own emotions that were everywhere and nowhere at once. "Daddy!" Mia's voice carried from the waiting room. "I've been counting. You're at 73. Daniel forced himself to move, to walk down the hallway to where his daughter was waiting by the fish tank, pressed against the glass watching those same bright fish navigate their small world. "Sorry, Bug. Got held up." "That's okay. Look, the yellow one is chasing the blue one. I think they're playing tag." Daniel crouched beside her, watching fish swim in circles. "What did you think? About meeting your mom?" Mia kept her eyes on the tank. "She's nice. And she's really sick, huh?" "Yeah, really sick. But she loves me. Very much. And you love me too. More than anything in the whole world." "Then I think it's okay." Mia finally turned to look at him. "Even if she dies, I'll still have you. And Aunt Lena said she'd tell me stories so I can remember Mommy, even after she's gone. So it's sad, but it's okay." Daniel pulled his daughter into a hug, holding her tight against his chest, and wondered how a 4-year-old had figured out something he was still struggling to accept. That love didn't fix everything. That sad and okay could exist at the same time. That you could move forward even when you didn't know where forward led. "You're pretty smart, you know that?" he murmured into her hair. "I know, you tell me all the time." He laughed, and it felt good to laugh. Felt like remembering how. "Come on, let's go home." They walked out of Sacred Heart Hospital hand in hand, stepping into afternoon sunlight that felt too bright after the muted lighting inside. Daniel's phone buzzed as they reached the car. A text from Lena. "How are you holding up?" He typed back with one hand while helping Mia into her car seat with the other. "Surviving. Mia's doing better than I am." "Kids are resilient." "You're doing great, Daniel. Both of you are." "Thanks for being there today." "Always. I meant what I said about ice cream tomorrow, if you're okay with it." Daniel buckled Mia in, closed her door, and stood in the parking lot looking at his phone. Always. Lena had said always. Like she was planning to stick around, like she saw a future that included him and Mia and whatever messy situation they were building out of the wreckage of his marriage. "I'm okay with it," he typed. "Mia's excited." "Just Mia?" Daniel stared at those two words for a long moment. It was a question, an opening, an invitation to acknowledge what was happening between them, even though the timing was impossible and the circumstances were complicated, and his wife was lying in a hospital bed 2 floors up. "Not just Mia," he typed finally. "I'll call you tonight after she's asleep." "I'll be waiting." He pocketed his phone and got into the car. Mia was already singing to herself in the back seat, some made-up song about fish and hospitals and mommies who loved you even when they had to go away. Daniel caught her eye in the rearview mirror. "What do you want for dinner, Bug?" "Mac and cheese." "We had mac and cheese yesterday." "But it's my favorite." "How about we have mac and cheese with vegetables?" Mia's face scrunched up in theatrical disgust. "Vegetables are yucky. Vegetables are healthy. But mac and cheese is delicious. It can be both delicious and have vegetables." "Fine, but only the little trees." Daniel smiled. "Broccoli. Deal." They drove home through familiar streets, past the grocery store where Rachel used to shop, and the park where they'd taken Mia as a baby, and the coffee shop where Daniel had spent countless mornings before work. Everything looked the same as it had that morning, but Daniel felt fundamentally changed, like he'd crossed some invisible threshold and there was no going back to who he'd been before Lena knocked on his door. At home, he made mac and cheese with broccoli while Mia built an elaborate structure with her blocks that she informed him was a hospital for sick bunnies. He watched her play, listened to her narrate the stories she was creating, and marveled at how thoroughly she'd accepted the reality of Rachel back in their lives. "Mr. Hopscotch needs medicine," Mia announced, making the rabbit hop across her block hospital. "But the medicine makes him sleepy." "Just like your mom." Daniel said without thinking. Mia nodded seriously. The nurse said she needs to rest, so Mr. Hopscotch needs to rest too. Daniel served dinner and they ate at the kitchen table, Mia chattering about her drawings and the fish tank and whether they could bring Bubbles to the hospital tomorrow because maybe sick people needed Bubbles to feel better. Daniel made encouraging noises and asked follow-up questions and tried not to think about the conversation he was going to have with Lena once Mia was asleep. Bath time and bedtime followed their usual routine, splashing and giggling and the careful negotiation of which pajamas to wear and how many books constituted just one more story. When Mia was finally tucked in with Mr. Hopscotch reclaimed from his hospital duties, Daniel sat on the edge of her bed like he did every night. "You okay, Bug?" "Uh-huh. Daddy?" "Yeah." "Is it okay that I liked Mommy, even though she left?" The question pierced something in Daniel's chest. "Of course it's okay, Mia. She's your mom. You're allowed to love her." "But she made you sad." She did. But that doesn't mean you can't love both of us. People are complicated, Bug. Someone can make mistakes and hurt people and still be worth loving." Mia thought about this, her small face serious in the glow of her nightlight. "Are you going to stop being sad?" "Eventually, sadness doesn't last forever." "Good. Because I like it better when you're happy." Daniel kissed her forehead. "I like it better too. Go to sleep, okay?" "Okay. Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, Bug. More than all the stars." "More than all the stars twice," Mia corrected, already drifting off. Daniel waited until her breathing evened out, then crept from her room and down the stairs. He stood in his kitchen with the lights off, looking at his phone, trying to decide if he was ready for the conversation he'd promised Lena they'd have. He called before he could talk himself out of it. She answered immediately. "Hey!" "Hey, you have a minute?" "I have all night if you need it." Daniel moved to this couch, sinking into cushions that still held the depression from where he'd sat the night before reading Rachel's letters. "I don't know where to start." "Start anywhere. I'm just listening." Seeing her today, seeing Rachel, it was harder than I expected, and easier in some ways. She's dying, Lena, really dying this time. And part of me wants to feel vindicated, like karma is catching up with her for leaving. But mostly I just feel sad. Sad is normal. She told me she wouldn't be angry if something happened between you and me. Gave us her blessing like she has any right to give it. Lena was quiet for a moment. How did that make you feel? Angry, like she still thinks she gets to make decisions about my life. But also relieved, which makes me feel guilty. I shouldn't be thinking about moving on when my wife is lying in a hospital bed. Daniel, you've been moving on for 3 years. You just didn't know it. That's different. I thought she was gone. I thought I was a widower rebuilding his life. But she's not gone. She's here and dying, and I'm supposed to, what? Pretend I don't feel anything for you? Pretend that having you in my life doesn't make everything feel less impossible? I'm not asking you to pretend anything. Lena's voice was gentle but firm. I told you how I feel because I was tired of hiding it. But Daniel, I need you to know something. I'm not asking you to choose right now. I'm not asking you to figure out what you feel or make decisions about us while you're dealing with Rachel and helping Mia through this. I'm just asking to be here, to be your friend and Mia's aunt and someone you can call at night when it all gets too heavy. What if I want more than that? The question hung in the silence between them. Daniel could hear Lena's breathing change, could imagine her sitting wherever she was, processing what he'd just admitted. Then we'll figure that out, she said finally. When the time is right. When Rachel... She stopped. When Rachel dies, Daniel finished. You can say it. When Rachel dies, Lena repeated quietly. We'll figure out what this is and what it could be, but not before. It wouldn't be fair to Mia or to Rachel or to either of us. You're very rational about this. One of us has to be. You're running on no sleep and too many emotions. I've had 2 years to think about what I want and what's right, and where those two things intersect. And where do they intersect? With me being patient. With me supporting you through this without expecting anything in return. With me loving you quietly until you're ready to love someone back. Daniel closed his eyes, letting her words wash over him. You love me. I told you I did. Last night, in your living room. I know, I just needed to hear it again, needed to know it wasn't something I imagined in the chaos. It's not imagined, it's real, and it's yours whenever you're ready for it. But Daniel, I need you to promise me something. What? Promise me you'll let yourself grieve. For Rachel, for your marriage, for the life you thought you'd have. Don't rush through it to get to whatever comes next. Don't feel guilty for being sad or angry or confused. Just let yourself feel it. I don't know how to do that and still function as Mia's dad. You've been doing it for 3 years. You're better at it than you think. They talked for another hour, the conversation drifting from heavy topics to lighter ones and back again. Lena told him stories about Rachel as a kid, about the time she'd convinced their parents she could fly and jumped off the garage roof with an umbrella, about her terrible singing voice and her habit of naming inanimate objects, about the fierce protective love she'd always had for the people she cared about, even when she showed it in the worst possible ways. She would have been so proud of what you've done with Mia, Lena said, the father you've become. I know she was watching from a distance through me, but if she could have seen you directly, seen you teaching Mia to ride a bike, and reading her stories and being so patient when she asks why for the millionth time, she would have been so proud. She gave that up when she left. I know, but that doesn't make it less true. When they finally said goodnight, Daniel sat in the dark of his living room and let himself acknowledge what he'd been refusing to admit. He was falling for Lena, had maybe already fallen. And Rachel dying didn't make that wrong, but it made the timing complicated in ways he didn't know how to navigate. His phone buzzed one more time. Lena again. Thank you for calling. Thank you for trusting me. Sleep well, Daniel. He typed back. Thank you for being patient with me, for being here, for everything. Always, she wrote back, and this time Daniel let himself believe it. The next 3 weeks developed a rhythm that would have seemed impossible when Lena first knocked on Daniel's door. Hospital visits became part of their routine. Not every day, but often enough that Mia stopped asking if they were going and started asking when. Rachel's room filled with Mia's drawings, taped to the walls by nurses who'd grown fond of the little girl who brought sunshine into the oncology ward. Daniel would sit in the visitor's chair while Mia climbed onto Rachel's bed, careful of the IV lines, and tell her mother about preschool and playground politics and the ongoing saga of Emma, who always took the blue blocks. Lena came too, though she was careful to give them space when it felt needed. The ice cream date she'd promised Mia turned into a weekly tradition. Thursdays after preschool, chocolate chip for Mia and mint chocolate chip for Lena. Sitting at the little shop on Main Street while Lena told stories about Rachel that made Mia laugh and occasionally made her cry in that uncomplicated way children had of feeling emotions fully and then moving on. Daniel would watch them together, his daughter and the woman who'd watched them from the shadows for 2 years, and feel something in his chest that was becoming harder to ignore. The way Lena remembered how Mia liked her ice cream in a cup, not a cone. The way she'd learned to braid hair by watching YouTube videos so she could help when Daniel dropped Mia off. The way she'd shown up at his house at 6 in the morning one Tuesday with coffee and breakfast sandwiches because she knew he had a presentation at work and probably hadn't eaten. They were careful not to be too much in front of Rachel, kept their interactions appropriate, friendly, the way anyone might treat their dying wife's sister. But the tension was there, humming under every conversation, acknowledged in the texts they sent late at night, and the way their hands would brush when passing Mia's backpack, and the looks that lasted a half-second too long. Rachel noticed. Of course she noticed. It was week 4 when she brought it up. Mia was napping in the chair beside the bed, exhausted from a morning of playing hospital with the nurses' station toys. Daniel was reading work emails on his phone, only half present, when Rachel's voice cut through the quiet. You're in love with her. Daniel's head snapped up. What? Lena. You're in love with her. Rachel's voice was matter-of-fact, no accusation in it. I can see it in the way you look at her, the way you lean toward her when she talks, the way you smile at your phone when you think I'm not watching. Rachel, we're not. Don't lie to me, Daniel. Please, I've had enough lies to last whatever lifetime I have left. She shifted in the bed, wincing slightly. I'm not angry. I told you I wouldn't be. I just want to know if you've told her yet. Told her what? That you love her back. Daniel set his phone down, looked at his sleeping daughter, then back at his dying wife. I don't think that's an appropriate conversation to have with you. Maybe not, but we're having it anyway. Rachel's eyes were clear despite the medication, focused on him with an intensity that reminded him of the woman he'd married. Daniel, I don't have time for appropriate. I'm dying, really dying this time, and the doctors say it's going faster than they expected, so I'm going to say things I need to say, and you're going to listen. I'm listening. I love my sister. I love you. And watching the two of you dance around each other for the sake of my feelings or propriety or whatever is killing me faster than the cancer. You deserve to be happy. Lena deserves to be happy, and Mia deserves to have people in her life who love each other and aren't afraid to show it. She deserves to have her mother, Daniel said quietly. She does, and she'll have me for whatever time is left. But then she'll need someone else. Someone who can be there for her tea parties and first days of school and all the moments I'm going to miss. Someone who already loves her like she's their own. Rachel's voice cracked. That's Lena, Daniel. You know it is. You're asking me to replace you. I'm asking you to move forward. There's a difference. Rachel reached for his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Daniel let her take it. Her fingers were cold and thin, nothing like he remembered. I made so many mistakes, left when I should have stayed, pushed away when I should have held on. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Don't let fear keep you from something real. I'm not afraid. Liar. But she said it with affection. You're terrified of what it means to love someone new, of what people will think, of dishonoring my memory or confusing Mia or making a choice you can't take back. But Daniel, none of that matters as much as you think it does. How can you be so calm about this? About me and your sister? Rachel smiled, sad and knowing. Because I've been dying for 4 years now. On and off, sure. But dying all the same. And when you're dying, you get very clear about what actually matters. What matters is that Mia is loved. What matters is that you're not alone. What matters is that Lena finally gets the family she's wanted her whole life. Everything else is just noise. I don't know if I'm ready. You'll never be ready. That's the thing about moving forward. You just have to do it scared. She squeezed his hand weakly. Promise me something? What? Promise me that when I'm gone, you won't wait some arbitrary amount of time to be happy. Don't spend a year in mourning because you think that's what you're supposed to do. Just be happy, as soon as you can be. That's all I want. Daniel felt tears burning in his eyes. You're being too generous. After everything, you're being too generous, and it's making me angry. Good. Be angry. Be sad. Feel everything you need to feel, but don't let those feelings stop you from living. Rachel pulled her hand back, settled it on her chest. I spent 3 years not living because I was so focused on dying. Don't make the same mistake. They sat in silence after that, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Mia stirred in her sleep, murmured something unintelligible, then settled again. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. The doctors want to start me on a new treatment protocol, Rachel said eventually. Experimental, aggressive. Might buy me a few more months, might do nothing except make me sicker. Are you going to do it? I don't know. Part of me wants to fight for every second I can get with Mia. But part of me is just so tired, Daniel. Tired of being sick, tired of hospitals, tired of fighting a battle I'm going to lose anyway. What does Lena think? She wants me to try, says she's not ready to lose me yet. Rachel's laugh was hollow. But Lena's been not ready to lose me for 4 years. At some point you have to accept the inevitable. Maybe the treatment will work. Maybe. Or maybe I'll spend my last months too sick to talk to Mia, too weak to tell her the things I want her to know. Quality versus quantity. How do you even make that choice? Daniel didn't have an answer. He'd never had to make that choice, had never stood at the intersection of more time and better time and tried to calculate which path led to less regret. Talk to Lena, he said finally. Really talk to her. Not as your sister who can't let go, but as someone who loves you and wants what's best for you. She might surprise you. She usually does. Rachel's eyes drifted to Mia. Will you tell her about me when she's older? Will you tell her the good things and the bad things? Will you make sure she knows I wasn't just the woman who left? I'll tell her everything. The real you, not some sanitized version. The woman who danced in the kitchen and cried at dog commercials and made the worst spaghetti in the history of pasta. Rachel smiled. It really was terrible, wasn't it? Aggressively bad. I have no idea how you made it that bad. Talent. She closed her eyes, exhaustion creeping into her features. Thank you, Daniel, for bringing Mia, for letting me have this, for not hating me as much as you probably should. I told you, I don't hate you. I know, that's the worst part. If you hated me, this would all be easier. Daniel stood, gently shaking Mia awake. Come on, Bug. Time to let Mommy rest. Mia blinked awake, disoriented. Already? Already. Say goodbye. Mia climbed onto the bed one more time, wrapping her small arms around Rachel's neck. Love you, Mommy. Love you too, baby. More than all the stars. More than all the stars twice, Mia corrected, and Rachel laughed through tears. They left Rachel sleeping, walked through the familiar hallways to the parking lot where late afternoon sun slanted across the pavement. Daniel buckled Mia into her car seat and pulled out his phone, staring at Lena's contact information. He called. Hey, she answered. How was the visit? Can you come over tonight after Mia's asleep? I need to talk to you. A pause. Is everything okay? Rachel wants to talk to you about treatment options, and I need to tell you something I should have said weeks ago. Daniel, please, just come over. Around 8? Okay, I'll be there. The hours between then and 8 o'clock stretched and compressed in equal measure. Daniel made dinner, supervised bath time, read 3 stories instead of the negotiated 2 because Mia's pleading eyes were impossible to resist. When she was finally asleep, he paced his living room like a caged animal, rehearsing and discarding a dozen different ways to say what he needed to say. Lena knocked at 8:03. Daniel opened the door, and there she was, wearing jeans and a sweater that looked soft enough to bury his face in, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking at him with those eyes that were Rachel's eyes, but also completely her own. Hi, she said. Hi, come in. She followed him inside, settled on the couch while he remained standing, too agitated to sit. You're making me nervous, she said. Whatever you need to say, just say it. Daniel took a breath. Rachel knows. About us. About how I feel about you. There is no us. Not yet. That's the thing. I want there to be. Not after Rachel dies. Not when some appropriate amount of time has passed. Not when I've checked all the boxes of proper widower behavior. Now. I want there to be an us now. Lena stood slowly. Daniel, you're grieving. You're watching your wife die, and you're trying to help your daughter process impossible emotions, and you're exhausted. You don't know what you want right now. Don't tell me what I know. The words came out harder than he intended. I know that I think about you constantly. I know that you're the person I want to call when something happens. I know that Mia lights up when she sees you, and that makes my heart do things I didn't think it could do anymore. I know that Rachel is dying and that's destroying me, but you being in my life is the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. Rachel is still alive. Barely, and getting worse every day. The doctors give her maybe 2 months, probably less. Daniel ran his hands through his hair. And she told me today that she wants me to be happy, wants us to be happy. Gave us her blessing like that makes any of this less complicated. It doesn't make it less complicated. It makes it more complicated. Lena crossed her arms over her chest, a defensive posture. What happens when she dies, Daniel? What happens when you're in the thick of grief and you look at me and see the woman who replaced your wife? What happens when Mia gets confused about why Aunt Lena is suddenly more than just Aunt Lena? What happens is we figure it out together, like people do. We're not just people, we're... Lena's voice broke. We're a man and his dead wife's sister. People will talk. They'll say terrible things. They'll say I seduced you, or that you never loved Rachel, or that we were carrying on behind her back while she was dying. Let them talk. Easy for you to say. No, it's not easy. None of this is easy. Daniel closed the distance between them, stopped just short of touching her. But Lena, I've spent 3 years doing the hard thing. Being a single parent, grieving a woman I thought was dead, rebuilding my life from nothing, and I'm tired of hard. I'm ready for something that feels right, even if the timing is wrong. And what if I'm not ready? The question stopped Daniel cold. Are you not? Lena looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. I've been ready for 2 years. I've been ready since the first time I saw you at the grocery store with Mia, and you were so patient when she wanted every single cereal box, and you looked exhausted but happy, and I thought that's what love looks like. I've been ready since I watched you learn to braid hair through your car window while I sat across the parking lot feeling like a creep. I've been ready since the moment I knocked on your door in the rain, and you let me in even though you had every right to slam it in my face. Then what's the problem? The problem is that I love my sister, and she's dying, and starting something with you now feels like dancing on her grave before she's even in it. She wants us to be happy. She's being generous because she's dying. That doesn't make it right. Then what would make it right? Daniel's voice rose with frustration. What arbitrary timeline do we have to follow? 6 months after she dies? A year? 2 years? When does it become okay to feel what we feel? I don't know. Lena's voice matched his. I don't have an answer, Daniel. All I know is that I love you and I love Rachel, and those two things are tearing me apart. They stood there breathing hard, faces inches apart, the air between them crackling with everything they'd been holding back. And then Daniel stopped thinking and closed the distance and kissed her. For a second, Lena froze. Then she kissed him back with a desperation that matched his own, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. It was nothing like kissing Rachel. Rachel had been soft and gentle and easy. Lena kissed like she was drowning and he was air, like she'd been waiting for this for so long that now that it was happening, she couldn't get enough. They broke apart gasping. Lena's hand flew to her mouth. Oh no, we can't, I can't. Lena, I need to go. She was already moving toward the door. I'm sorry. I can't do this right now. I can't. Don't run from this. She spun back to face him. I'm not running. I'm preserving what's left of my relationship with my dying sister. There's a difference. Is there? Because it looks a lot like running to me. You don't get to judge me for this, Daniel. You're not the one who's going to have to look Rachel in the eye tomorrow and pretend you didn't just kiss her husband. She knows. She told me she knows. She wants this for us. She doesn't know what she wants. She's dying and scared and trying to tie up loose ends. That doesn't mean we should take advantage of her guilt-induced generosity. That's not what this is. Isn't it? Lena's laugh was bitter. Isn't this exactly what this is? Her trying to make amends for leaving by giving you permission to replace her with someone who's conveniently already in love with you? You don't believe that. I don't know what I believe anymore. Lena wiped her eyes roughly. I need time, Daniel. I need to think. I need to talk to Rachel without the weight of having just kissed you in my living room. This is my living room. You know what I mean? She pulled open the door. I'll still come on Thursday, for Mia, but we need to put whatever this is on hold until after. Until Rachel dies. Say it. Lena flinched. Until Rachel dies. Yes. Is that really so unreasonable? Daniel wanted to say yes. Wanted to argue that life was short and time was precious, and they'd already wasted enough of both. But looking at Lena standing in his doorway with tears on her face and guilt written into every line of her body, he knew pushing would only drive her further away. No, he said quietly, it's not unreasonable. I don't like it, but it's not unreasonable. Thank you, she hesitated. For what it's worth, that kiss, don't. Don't analyze it or apologize for it or try to minimize it. It happened. It meant something. And when you're ready, we'll figure out what that something is. Lena nodded, then left without another word. Daniel stood in his open doorway watching her car pull away, feeling like he'd won and lost something in the same moment. The next week was torture. Lena kept her word about Thursday, showing up for ice cream with Mia like nothing had happened. But she was careful not to be alone with Daniel. Hospital visits became exercises in polite distance, the two of them orbiting each other like planets that couldn't quite find the right gravitational pull. Mia noticed, of course she noticed, and asked Daniel why Aunt Lena didn't smile as much anymore. She's sad about your mom being sick, Daniel told her, which was true enough. Are you sad too? Yeah, Bug, I'm sad too. But you still smile at me. Because you make me happy even when I'm sad. That's how much I love you. Mia seemed satisfied with this answer and went back to her coloring. Daniel went back to pretending his chest didn't ache every time he saw Lena. It was Rachel who finally forced the issue. 2 weeks after the kiss Daniel and Lena were pretending hadn't happened, Rachel called Daniel's cell at 10 at night. I need you to come to the hospital, now, both of you. Rachel, it's late. Mia's asleep and get a babysitter. This is important. Daniel heard something in her voice that made his stomach drop. Are you okay? Should I call the nurses? I'm fine. Well, not fine, but not crisis fine. Just come, please. He called Lena. Rachel wants us at the hospital, now. It's 10 o'clock. I know, she sounded serious. Do you know anyone who could watch Mia? I'll be there in 15 minutes. I'll watch her while you go. She wants both of us, Lena. A pause. Then I'll call my neighbor. She owes me a favor. They met in the hospital parking lot 30 minutes later, both of them tense and worried, walking side by side but careful not to touch. The night shift nurse waved them through, mentioned that Rachel had been asking for them for the past hour, had refused to take her medication until they arrived. Room 412 was dimly lit, only the bedside lamp on. Rachel was sitting up, looking more alert than she had in days, her eyes bright with something Daniel couldn't identify. You came, she said. You made it sound urgent, Daniel replied. What's wrong? Sit down, both of you. They sat in the 2 chairs beside her bed. Rachel looked at them, then at each other, then back at them. You've been miserable for 2 weeks. Rachel, Lena started, don't try to deny it or smooth it over or pretend everything is fine. I can see it. I might be dying, but I'm not blind. She folded her hands in her lap. I'm done with treatment. The words hit like a physical blow. What? Lena's voice was barely a whisper. I'm stopping treatment. No more chemo. No more experimental protocols. No more fighting. I'm done. Rachel, you can't. I can and I am. It's my choice, Lena. My body. My death. Rachel's voice was firm, but not unkind. The treatment is making me too sick to enjoy what time I have left. I can't play with Mia, can't have a real conversation without falling asleep halfway through, can't be present for my own life. So I'm choosing quality over quantity. How long? Daniel asked quietly. They're saying weeks, maybe a month if I'm lucky. Rachel smiled sadly. So you see, time is very short, too short to waste being miserable about things that are going to happen anyway. What do you mean? Lena asked. I mean, you two are going to fall in love, if you haven't already. You're going to build a life together. You're going to raise Mia and probably have more kids and grow old together. And you're going to do all of that with my blessing. But more than that, you're going to do it with my insistence. Rachel, no, you're going to listen to me, both of you. Rachel's eyes were fierce. I am dying, really, actually dying this time. And I have made my peace with that. What I haven't made peace with is the 2 people I love most in the world torturing themselves over something I desperately want them to have. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop sneaking around your feelings. You're going to be honest with each other and with yourselves. And you're going to start building whatever this is now while I'm still here to see it. You can't ask us to do that, Lena said through tears. I'm not asking, I'm telling. Rachel reached for both their hands, pulled them close. I don't have time for waiting anymore. None of us do. So please stop wasting the time we have left on guilt that doesn't serve anyone. Daniel felt something crack open in his chest. You're really stopping treatment. I'm really stopping. And you're sure? I'm sure. I want my last weeks to be about living, not about dying. I want to tell Mia stories. I want to have real conversations with Lena. I want to watch you two figure out how to be happy together. That's what I want. Lena was crying openly now. I don't want to lose you. You're going to lose me anyway. This way, you just get a better version of me at the end. Rachel pulled them both closer, her grip surprisingly strong. Promise me. Promise me you'll stop hiding from this. Daniel looked at Lena across Rachel's bed, saw his own grief and fear and impossible hope reflected back at him. I promise, he said. Lena hesitated, then nodded. I promise too. Good. Rachel released their hands and settled back against her pillows, looking exhausted but satisfied. Now get out of here. Go talk. Figure things out. Come back tomorrow with Mia and a plan for how you're going to tell her about you too, because that's happening. You're telling her while I'm still here to help. They left because Rachel was already falling asleep, the effort of the conversation draining what little energy she had. In the parking lot, under the harsh fluorescent lights, Daniel and Lena stood beside their cars and looked at each other. Your place or mine? Lena asked. Mine. The babysitter's there. They drove separately but arrived within seconds of each other, paid the neighbor and thanked her, stood in Daniel's living room, finally alone, finally free to be honest. I'm scared, Lena said. Me too. What if we do this and it doesn't work? What if we do this and it does? Lena smiled despite her tears. When did you become an optimist? When you knocked on my door in the rain and reminded me that impossible things happen all the time. Daniel crossed to her, took her hands in his. I love you, Lena. I love you. And it terrifies me. And I don't care. I want to do this. With you. Starting now. Rachel's dying. I know, and that's devastating. But she's right. We don't have time to waste. None of us do. So I'm asking you, right here, right now, will you take this chance with me? Lena looked up at him, searching his face for something. Whatever she found there must have satisfied her because she nodded. Yes, I'll take this chance. Daniel kissed her then, and this time Lena didn't pull away. They stood in his living room kissing like teenagers, like people who'd been given permission to want something after convincing themselves they couldn't have it. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying. This is going to be hard, Lena whispered against his chest. I know. People are going to judge us. Let them. Mia's going to be confused. We'll help her through it. And Rachel, Lena's voice broke. Rachel's going to die, and we're going to have to grieve her while trying to build this. Yeah, we are. Daniel pulled back enough to look at her. But we'll do it together. That's the whole point. Lena nodded and buried her face in his shoulder. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other up, mourning what was ending and celebrating what was beginning, finding comfort in the impossible middle ground where love and loss existed side by side. When Lena finally left, late, too late, but neither of them caring, Daniel went upstairs and checked on Mia. She was sleeping peacefully, Mr. Hopscotch clutched in one hand, completely unaware that her world was shifting beneath her. We'll make this okay for you, Daniel whispered to his sleeping daughter. I promise. And for the first time in weeks, he believed it. The conversation with Mia happened 3 days later, in Rachel's hospital room with all 3 adults present, and approximately 17 different ways Daniel had rehearsed it in his head, abandoned the moment his daughter looked up at him with those trusting eyes. Bug, we need to talk to you about something, Daniel started, sitting on the edge of Rachel's bed while Mia played with her rabbit on the floor. Am I in trouble? No, baby, Rachel said softly. You're not in trouble. We just want to tell you about something that's happening. Mia climbed up into Daniel's lap, sensing the seriousness of the moment. What's happening? Daniel looked at Lena, who was perched on the windowsill looking like she might bolt at any second, then back at Rachel, who nodded encouragingly. You know how much Aunt Lena has been helping us? Coming to visit, taking you for ice cream, being around a lot? Uh-huh. I like when she comes over. Good. That's good. Well, Aunt Lena and I have become really close friends, and we've decided that we want to be more than friends. We want to... Daniel stumbled over the words, unsure how to explain adult relationships to a 4-year-old. We want to be a family, Lena said quietly from her spot by the window. Your dad and me. If that's okay with you. Mia's forehead wrinkled in concentration. Like how Emma's mom has a boyfriend now? Sort of like that, yes. But what about Mommy? Mia looked at Rachel with confusion that was heartbreaking in its innocence. Isn't Daddy supposed to be with Mommy? Rachel's eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed steady. In a perfect world, yes. Your daddy and I would be together forever. But baby, I'm very sick, and I'm not going to get better. So your daddy needs someone who can be there for him and for you after I'm gone. And Aunt Lena loves you both so much. She's going to take really good care of you. Are you going to die soon? The bluntness of the question made Daniel's breath catch, but Rachel handled it with the same directness. Yes, sweetheart, probably in a few weeks. Maybe a little longer if I'm lucky, but not very long. And then Aunt Lena will be my new mommy? Not exactly, Lena said, moving from the window to kneel beside Mia. I could never replace your mom, Mia. She's your mom forever, even after she's gone. But I can be someone who loves you like a mom. Someone who takes care of you and reads you stories and helps your dad with all the things moms and dads do together, if you want me to be. Mia thought about this with the gravity of someone much older. Can I still call you Aunt Lena? Of course you can. You can call me whatever feels right to you. And Mommy won't be sad if I love Aunt Lena too? Rachel reached out and stroked Mia's hair. Mommy wants you to love Aunt Lena. Mommy wants you to be happy and have people who care about you. That's all I've ever wanted. Okay, Mia nodded, seemingly satisfied with this explanation. Can we still get ice cream on Thursdays? The adults laughed through their tears. Yes, Bug, Daniel said. We can still get ice cream on Thursdays. Then it's okay. Mia slid off Daniel's lap and returned to her rabbit, like they'd just discussed what to have for dinner instead of a fundamental restructuring of her family. Children's resilience never ceased to amaze Daniel. Rachel caught his eye and mouthed, "See?" with a small smile. Lena looked like she might cry from relief. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange, accelerated intimacy. Rachel's decision to stop treatment meant she was more present, more herself, able to have real conversations and make memories instead of sleeping through medication fog. Daniel brought Mia every day after preschool, and Lena came straight from work, and together they created a cocoon of togetherness in room 412. Rachel told stories about meeting Daniel in college, about their courthouse wedding, about the night Mia was born 3 weeks early, and how Daniel had driven to the hospital so fast Rachel was convinced they'd get pulled over. She told Mia about her own childhood, about learning to ride a bike and breaking her arm falling out of a tree, and the time she and Lena had tried to run away from home, but only made it to the end of the block before getting hungry and coming back. Lena filled in the gaps, adding details Rachel forgot, or putting her own spin on shared memories. Daniel watched the sisters together and saw the love that had survived everything, the secrets and the distance and the impossible situations. Saw how they could make each other laugh even now, even with death sitting in the corner of the room waiting patiently. And in the spaces between, when Mia was playing with the nurses or sleeping in the chair, Rachel orchestrated something else entirely. She insisted Daniel and Lena hold hands in front of her, insisted they kiss goodbye when leaving, insisted they stop treating their relationship like something shameful and start treating it like the gift she was trying to give them. I want to see you happy, she told them one afternoon when Mia was down in the playroom. I need to see it. Need to know that when I'm gone, you'll have each other. So they tried. Awkwardly at first, hyper-aware of Rachel watching, but gradually with more ease. Daniel would rest his hand on Lena's shoulder when looking at something on her phone. Lena would lean against him when tired. Small intimacies that felt huge under the circumstances, but that Rachel encouraged with smiles and nods and occasionally telling them to stop being ridiculous and just kiss already. This is the weirdest deathbed situation in history, Lena said one night as she and Daniel sat in his living room after putting Mia to bed. Probably not the weirdest, but definitely up there. Daniel pulled her closer on the couch, still marveling that he was allowed to do that now. How are you holding up? I don't know. Some moments I'm okay. Some moments I look at her and see my sister disappearing and I want to scream. Some moments I look at you and feel so guilty for being happy when she's dying. She wants you to be happy. I know. That doesn't make the guilt go away. Daniel pressed a kiss to her temple. No, I guess it doesn't. They'd fallen into a pattern of these late-night conversations, processing the impossible situation they were navigating. Lena would come over after Mia's bedtime, and they'd sit together in the quiet of Daniel's living room, talking through fears and grief and the strange joy of finding each other in the middle of loss. I'm terrified of after, Lena admitted one night, her head on Daniel's shoulder. When she's gone and it's just us, and we have to figure out how to actually be together without her orchestrating it. We'll figure it out. What if we can't? What if we fall apart without her as the buffer? Then we fall apart and put ourselves back together. That's what people do. Daniel tilted her face up to look at him. I'm not going anywhere, Lena. Even when it's hard, even when the grief hits and we don't know how to be. I'm staying. Promise? Promise. She kissed him then, and Daniel was learning the difference between Lena's kisses. The desperate ones that came from fear, the gentle ones that were about comfort, the passionate ones that reminded him he was still alive, still capable of wanting something beyond survival. This kiss was all three. Rachel lasted 3 weeks after stopping treatment. 3 weeks of lucidity and laughter and love concentrated into a space too small to hold it all. 3 weeks of Mia's daily visits, of stories and songs, and Mr. Hopscotch taking up permanent residence on Rachel's pillow. 3 weeks of Daniel and Lena learning to be together under the most unconventional circumstances imaginable. On the last day, Rachel asked to speak to each of them alone. Mia went first, climbing onto the bed with her mother for what they all knew was the last time. Daniel and Lena waited in the hallway, holding hands, listening to the murmur of Rachel's voice through the closed door. When Mia emerged 20 minutes later, she was crying but calm, carrying a small box Rachel had given her. "What's in the box, Bug?" Daniel asked gently. "Letters. Mommy wrote me letters for when I'm older, for my birthday and my first day of school and my wedding and other important things. She said I can read them whenever I miss her." Daniel pulled his daughter into his arms and held her while she cried against his chest. Over her head, he met Lena's eyes and saw his own devastation reflected there. "Can I go to the playroom?" Mia asked after a few minutes. "I don't want to be sad anymore right now." "Of course, Bug. Lena will take you." Lena nodded and held out her hand to Mia. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go see if they have new toys today." When they were gone, Daniel entered Rachel's room alone. She looked smaller than ever, her skin almost translucent, but her eyes were clear when they found him. "It's time," she said simply. Daniel sat beside her, taking her hand. "I know. I'm scared. I know that too. Not of dying. I'm scared of not being here, of missing everything, of Mia forgetting me." "She won't forget you. I won't let her." Rachel smiled weakly. "I know you won't. You're going to be an amazing father, Daniel. You already are. You became everything I needed you to be when I couldn't be there. I didn't have a choice. You did. You could have fallen apart, could have been bitter and angry and let that destroy you, but you chose to be strong for Mia. You chose to build a good life. That was always a choice." Daniel felt tears streaming down his face. "I'm so angry at you for leaving, for the time we lost, for making me do this alone. I know, and you have every right to be. But Daniel, can you also forgive me? Eventually? Not now, not today, but someday?" He wanted to say no, wanted to hold on to the anger because it was cleaner than grief, easier to carry than forgiveness. But looking at Rachel lying there, hours from death, he couldn't do it. "Yeah," he said. "Someday I can forgive you." "Thank you." Rachel squeezed his hand with what little strength she had left. "Take care of Lena. She's going to blame herself for being happy, for moving on. Don't let her. Make her see that loving you isn't a betrayal of me. It's exactly what I wanted." "I will." "And Daniel? Let yourself be happy too. You've spent 3 years surviving. It's okay to start living again." They sat in silence for a while, Daniel holding his dying wife's hand, both of them crying quietly. Finally, Rachel spoke again. "Send Lena in? I need to talk to my sister." Daniel kissed Rachel's forehead, lingering there for a moment that felt like goodbye, even though he knew he'd see her again. "I love you, for everything we were, for Mia, for showing me what it meant to be a father. I love you too. Thank you for giving me this ending, for being generous when you didn't have to be." He left her then, found Lena in the playroom with Mia, and told her Rachel was asking for her. Lena went pale but nodded, kissed Mia's head, and walked toward her sister's room like she was walking toward an execution. Daniel sat with Mia in the playroom, building elaborate structures with blocks, and trying not to think about what was happening down the hall, trying not to imagine the goodbye happening between two sisters who'd loved and hurt, and forgiven each other across the landscape of impossible choices. Lena emerged an hour later, her eyes swollen from crying, but her face peaceful. She came to Daniel and Mia and sat down on the floor with them. "Is Mommy sleeping?" Mia asked. "Almost, sweetheart. She wanted me to tell you she loves you more than all the stars, twice." "I love her too." Mia added another block to her tower. "Will she be an angel now?" Lena looked at Daniel, uncertain how to answer. He took over. "Your mom will always be with you, Bug. In here." He touched Mia's chest, right over her heart, and in all the stories we tell about her. "And in the letters she wrote you. She might not be here in body, but she'll never really be gone." Mia seemed satisfied with this answer. "Okay, can we go say goodbye now?" They went together, the three of them, and stood around Rachel's bed. She was barely conscious, breathing shallow, but when she felt their presence, her eyes opened one last time. "My family," she whispered, and it wasn't clear if she meant the old family or the new one, or the strange hybrid they'd created in these final weeks. Maybe it was all of them. Maybe family was just whoever showed up and stayed. "We're here," Daniel said. Rachel's eyes closed and didn't open again. She died 6 hours later with Mia asleep in Daniel's arms in the chair and Lena holding her sister's hand at 2:17 in the morning on a Tuesday that had started like any other but would mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The funeral was small, just family and a handful of close friends Rachel had accumulated over the years. Daniel stood at the front holding Mia's hand while Lena gave the eulogy, talking about her sister with honesty and love and the kind of clear-eyed grace that came from knowing someone completely. She talked about Rachel's laugh and her terrible cooking and her fierce protective love. She talked about the mistakes Rachel had made and the courage it took to own them. She talked about dying as an act of love and living as an act of bravery. Daniel cried through the whole thing, Mia pressed against his side, and afterward people approached with condolences that felt hollow but well meant. They saw him standing with Lena and made assumptions, some charitable, some not. But Daniel didn't care. Let them think what they wanted. He knew the truth. The first month after Rachel's death was brutal. Grief hit in waves that knocked Daniel sideways when he least expected it. He'd be making breakfast and suddenly remember the way Rachel used to steal his coffee before he'd had his first sip. Would be tucking Mia in and see Rachel's face so clearly in their daughter's features that he'd have to leave the room to cry. Lena was there through all of it, but she was drowning in her own grief too. They'd lie in Daniel's bed. She'd started staying over a week after the funeral, neither of them able to sleep alone, and hold each other while they cried. Sometimes they'd talk through memories. Sometimes they'd just exist in the silence of shared loss. "I keep expecting her to call," Lena said one night. "I'll see my phone light up, and for a second I think it's her. Then I remember. I know, I keep setting 3 places at the table before I catch myself. Does it get easier? I don't know. My dad died when I was in college. It got different, but I don't know if easier is the right word. You just learn to carry it." Lena was quiet for a long moment. "I miss her, and I feel guilty for being here with you, for being happy even though I'm sad, for wanting things when she can't have anything anymore." Daniel pulled her closer. "She wanted this for us. Remember that. On the hard days, remember that she fought for this, insisted on this. This isn't a betrayal, it's her last gift." "I know. I just wish I could thank her." "Me too." Mia processed Rachel's death the way children processed everything, in fits and starts, with questions that seemed random but were actually her trying to make sense of an incomprehensible loss. She'd be playing normally and suddenly ask if heaven had playgrounds. She'd get upset at bedtime because she couldn't remember what Rachel's voice sounded like. She'd see a woman with dark hair at the grocery store and call out "Mommy" before remembering. Each incident broke Daniel's heart a little more, but he and Lena navigated them together. They read books about grief for children. They let Mia talk about Rachel whenever she wanted. They looked at photos and read the letters Rachel had left for special occasions. They made sure Mia knew her mother was loved and remembered and never far from their thoughts. Slowly, painfully, they began to build a new normal. Lena moved in officially 3 months after Rachel died, her things gradually taking over the space Rachel's had once occupied. It felt wrong at first, seeing Lena's coffee mug where Rachel's used to sit, finding Lena's books on the nightstand, smelling Lena's shampoo in the bathroom, but it also felt right, like pieces clicking into place, like the house was becoming a home again instead of a museum to a lost life. 6 months after Rachel's death, Daniel and Lena sat Mia down for another conversation. Bug, Lena and I want to talk to you about something, Daniel started, Mia already in his lap like she'd been the first time they'd had this conversation. Am I in trouble? Lena laughed. You always ask that. No, sweetheart, you're not in trouble. We just want to know how you'd feel about something. What? Well, Lena's been living with us for a while now, and we love having her here. And we were thinking that maybe someday Lena and I could get married, make our family official, but only if you're okay with it. Mia tilted her head, thinking. She was 5 now, so much bigger than she'd been when this all started, able to articulate thoughts with more complexity. Would Lena be my new mom then? I could never replace your mom, Lena said gently, the same words she'd spoken in Rachel's hospital room. But I could be your stepmom, someone who loves you and takes care of you and is there for you always. Would I have to call you Mom? Only if you want to. You can keep calling me Aunt Lena or anything else that feels right to you. Mia was quiet for a long moment. Then, Emma says having a stepmom is weird but also kind of cool because you get extra presents at Christmas. Daniel and Lena both laughed. Well, that's one perspective, Daniel said. I think it would be okay, Mia decided. As long as we still talk about Mommy. As long as we don't forget her. We will never forget her, Lena promised. Never, ever. Your mom is part of our family forever. Okay then, you can get married. Just like that. With the casual acceptance of a child who'd already survived so much change that one more shift in family structure seemed manageable. They got married 8 months later, a small ceremony in Daniel's backyard with Mia as the flower girl and Rachel present in spirit, if not in body. Lena wore a simple blue dress, and Daniel wore the same suit he'd worn to his first wedding, and they exchanged vows that acknowledged the unconventional path that had brought them together. I promise to love you, Daniel said, holding Lena's hands in front of their gathered family and friends, through the grief and the joy. Through the hard days when Rachel's absence feels impossible, and the good days when we remember how to laugh, I promise to honor where we came from and build toward where we're going. Lena's vows were equally honest. I promise to love you and Mia with everything I have, to keep Rachel's memory alive and present, to never let guilt steal our happiness, to build a life that makes her proud. When they kissed, Mia cheered loudly, and Daniel felt something settle in his chest. Not the absence of pain, Rachel's loss would always hurt, but the presence of peace. They were going to be okay, more than okay. They were going to be happy. A year after the wedding, Lena told Daniel she was pregnant. They told Mia together, watching her face transform from confusion to excitement to something more complicated. Will the new baby replace me? She asked quietly. Never, Daniel said firmly. You will always be my first baby, my Mia. Nothing and no one could ever replace you. The baby will be your little brother or sister, Lena added. Someone else to love. Love multiplies, sweetheart. It doesn't divide. What would Mommy think? It was the question Mia asked about all the big changes in their life, her way of keeping Rachel present and relevant. Daniel had learned to answer honestly. I think your mommy would be thrilled. She loved babies. She would have wanted you to have siblings. Mia seemed satisfied with this. Okay, but I get to help pick the name. Deal. Their son was born 6 months later. A healthy baby boy with Lena's eyes and Daniel's nose and a cry that could wake the whole neighborhood. They named him Ryan Michael Brooks, Ryan after Lena's father, Michael after Rachel's middle name. Mia was obsessed with him from the moment he came home, insisting on helping with everything from diaper changes to bottle feeding. Daniel watched his daughter cradle her baby brother and felt the full weight of how far they'd come. From the night Lena had knocked on his door to this moment, surrounded by family both old and new, alive and remembered. It had been painful and complicated and nothing like he'd imagined his life would look, but it was theirs. Rachel's presence remained woven through their daily life. They celebrated her birthday every year with Mia's favorite dinner and stories about Rachel. They visited her grave regularly, bringing flowers and drawings and updates on how Mia was growing. They read the letters Rachel had written for Mia's milestones, the first day of kindergarten letter that made them all cry, the 7th birthday letter that made them laugh, the future letters they saved for when Mia was older. On Mia's 8th birthday, as they gathered around a cake covered in pink frosting and far too many candles, Daniel looked around at his family. Mia, now 8 and missing her 2 front teeth, excited about her birthday presents. Ryan, 2 years old and covered in frosting already. Lena, beautiful and tired and so full of love she glowed with it. "What are you thinking about?" Lena asked, catching him staring. "How lucky I am. How unexpected all of this is. How grateful I am that you knocked on my door that night. Even though it turned your whole life upside down? Especially because of that. Sometimes the best things come from the hardest moments." They blew out candles together, Mia making a wish she refused to share, and Daniel felt Rachel's presence as clearly as if she were standing in the room with them, not haunting them, not weighing them down with guilt. Just there, loving them, glad to see them happy. That night, after the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Daniel and Lena stood in the backyard looking up at the stars. It had become their ritual, this quiet time together under the night sky, processing the day and preparing for tomorrow. "Do you think she knows?" Lena asked. "Do you think Rachel sees all this?" "I don't know. Maybe. But I think wherever she is, she's at peace. She fought so hard to give us this. I have to believe she got to see that we didn't waste it." Lena leaned against him, fitting perfectly under his arm the way she always did. "I still miss her. Even though I have you and the kids and this beautiful life, I still miss my sister." "I know, me too. But I think that's okay. I think we're allowed to miss her and be happy at the same time." Rachel would say that's the whole point. She would. Daniel pressed a kiss to the top of Lena's head. She'd probably also say we're being too sentimental and need to stop standing in the cold. Lena laughed. She absolutely would. They went inside, locking up the house and checking on sleeping children before falling into bed exhausted but content. Daniel pulled Lena close, breathing in the scent of her, marveling that this was his life now. "I love you," he murmured into her hair. "I love you too. Always." "Always," he agreed. And in the darkness of their bedroom, in a house filled with love and loss, and the kind of family that was built rather than born, Daniel finally let go of the last threads of guilt he'd been carrying. Rachel had given him permission to be happy. Mia was thriving. Lena loved him with a fierceness that still took his breath away. They had built something beautiful from the wreckage of that rainy night when Lena knocked on his door carrying an envelope and a truth that changed everything. The door that had opened in the storm hadn't destroyed them. It had saved them. All of them. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Years later, when Mia was 16 and asking questions about her mother with the complexity of someone old enough to understand nuance, Daniel would sit with her and tell her the whole truth. About Rachel's choice to leave. About Lena's years of watching from a distance. About the complicated love story that had brought their family together. About how sometimes the hardest moments led to the most beautiful outcomes. "Do you wish it had been different?" Mia would ask. "That Mom had stayed? That you'd grown old with her instead?" And Daniel would answer honestly. "I wish your mother hadn't had to suffer. I wish she'd gotten to see you grow up. I wish a lot of things. But I don't wish away what we have. Your mom gave us an incredible gift when she brought Lena into our lives, and I'm grateful for that every single day." "I think I am too," Mia would say, "even though it's complicated. The best things usually are." But that was still years away. For now, Daniel had a sleeping wife beside him, 2 children dreaming upstairs, and a life that had been broken and healed and made stronger for the breaking. He had love that had survived impossible circumstances. He had family that defied conventional definition. He had Rachel's blessing and Lena's devotion and Mia's resilience. He had everything that mattered, and under a sky full of stars that Rachel used to count with Mia, in a house that held joy and sorrow in equal measure, Daniel Brooks finally allowed himself to be completely, fully, impossibly happy. The end.